Yep.
We good?
Yes, and yes.
All right, I would like to call the Village Council regular meeting agenda February 12, 2019 at 6:30 PM. We have a full quorum. First is adoption of the agenda. Before I ask anything, I would love to see a hard stop at 9:30 with closed session beginning by 9:30. So just to kind of get you guys all out of here, hopefully we can get through this in good amount of time. So that's my goal for 9:30 hard stop, and then we can go into closed session at that time. So any objections?
No. Barbara, you have an extra pen?
I got one. Give it back.
Should know that. Thank you. Sorry.
Does it work?
I'm sure it does.
So first up is adoption of the agenda. Do you have any additions, changes?
Per the email that I'd sent out, I do have a budget amendment. I need to add to the agenda.
Okay, and you want to add that as new business?
Yes.
HI?
That's fine.
Sorry, did you say?
I assume, if we're just keeping going in order.
I just didn't hear you. Did you say I?
I is in India.
Okay. I do. I have a couple of changes. One, I would like to I don't know how the best way to do this. I guess if you want to table all the meeting minutes, I'm working really hard on them, but I'm still not quite through them all yet. For the record, May 31st and the changes that Melanie Cox provided were fine with me. So if you want to move forward, if anyone wants to move forward, that's fine with me as well. Otherwise, we can table them.
For the minutes, I've got a bunch of changes for the May 31st meeting minutes, so we can talk about them. I can give them to Barbie, and you guys can see what the changes are. But I took a lot of time to go through and add some of the inaudible.
Why don't we do this? Why don't you get those changes to Barbie? Barbie, you redline where it is and then have it for the next packet. We can look at it, and if you're good, kind of like what that, this way we don't have to discuss it.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
this
And then,
night.
You want to make a motion on that?
Do we need to?
No, we're just pulling
we're
them off
just-
consent.
yeah.
Yeah,
and
just
I'll-
pull
Just gonna pull them?
And then,
Okay.
yeah, and I'll give you.
And are
my-
we going to pull consent when we get to consent? Don't we do that when we get to
I don't know,
consent?
we do it different
No,
every
you,
time.
no.
Okay.
No, we have been doing them at the same time that you're adopting the
Okay.
agenda.
Okay.
All right.
The other ones, the 9th, 30th, 27th,
Wait.
10th,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
25th, the rest of the meeting minutes, I would like it if Barbie could go over those, because I've done the 9th and the 30th and have found a ton of mistakes, just the wrong person talking, and instead of us trying to sit there and go through everything, because it's taken hours. And the 13th, I missed that one, sorry, and the 13th. If staff can go over those and then make sure
Where's
they're
the-
actually
oh, okay.
accurate.
I'm in favor of doing that because I hear what you're saying. It is taking a really long time. But I almost feel like it should be in conjunction with, I don't know, us, in the sense that, for example, there's a couple of motions and things like that, or parts of the audio that we should have checked. There's votes missing, for our rules of procedure. We're supposed to say who voted and where. So, I mean, I don't know what the easiest thing for Barbie is, but I don't know that I want her to necessarily, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the easiest thing for staff to do is. I don't feel the
What's
need to
Barbie think?
redo them.
Yeah, I don't want you to have to redo them since we've already paid somebody to do them. I feel like it's just better to go in and.
But if we're
Make the
gonna, if
corrections.
any individual's gonna challenge, whether it be you with your corrections or you with your corrections, if you get them to her and she redlines what changes were made and somehow highlights that this was
No,
your change.
but it's literally taken hours.
Oh, I know.
mean,
Trust me, I
to
did.
sit there and read.
Took me 3 hours for a 5:30.
You know, I know.
I am cutting things out too as I go. And I know that it wasn't you, right? This is a contract service, so they probably kind of arbitrarily
Just
included
wrote
it.
everything down.
Yeah, so let's just keep going the way we are. I feel like I can well, I'm only one person, but I can hand over some of the changes I've already got. I
Do
don't
you
know.
have some of them that are already redlined?
I do.
Okay, do you want, if you finished some of them, you want to send them to me and then we'll
To
get
go from
those?
there?
Yeah, we'll just go from there and then we'll send them back out based
I
on
mean,
what you
Yeah, and I'm not
have.
even like, at this point, I'm not even changing anything. It's just like the wording is,
Well, and it's wrong people making the motions too.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
half the time they got us mixed up.
Yeah, because
So
I've gone back
I have to go back
through
and
them.
listen to it, and I'm like, wait, I didn't say that, did I? And then I'm like, oh, no,
No,
I didn't say
no.
that.
yeah, I've highlighted a bunch of things. I have to go back to.
But,
this
I
again.
mean, Robert, have you and Nick and Joe, have you guys listened to, I mean, gone over these? I mean, it's
I was listening
crazy long.
to 9 today, and then I was listening, I spent 3 hours on 531, and think I got all the changes in, but again, it goes to, I mean, 8, 9, a lot of it is just because it's, and I don't know if we're trying to get the verbatim, which we can maybe add that.
Well, don't we have a policy where if we're gonna do verbatim, we need to vote on verbatim? Is that not right? So,
On your
Or it's
policy
just
that-
any council member could request, maybe not the whole thing verbatim.
yeah, I
then-
mean, yeah, right, but we have to
We
vote.
need to clarify that. We may want to add that on the agenda
work
to
session?
just, or the work session to talk about
Okay.
how we clarify how minutes are done, because there's a little bit of,
Well, I think these verbatim were just because we needed help.
No, I know that. I know that, but I mean, yes, I know that the transcription service did that, and that's fine, but they are, I mean, it's like 15 pages long, and then you gotta sit there and like,
It's like the information is there, but you almost have to reconstruct almost every paragraph.
because it's not like, you're like, wait,
And-
because it's
and-
like she stated that she understands this, but it's like, you have to sit there and listen to it and be like, okay, but that's what
But
she
again,
said.
I thought-
Like, it's,
again, I thought we already voted on high-level
We did,
minutes,
we
but
did.
we'll leave that for a discussion. Let's just say we're going to table all these to move things on for now. You guys can work on whatever you want, and
I mean,
Maybe we can split them up.
I'd really like Barbie just to sit there and listen to them, and just make the pertinent changes, like where the motions are missed or the votes are missed, and get the right people talking.
because on 8, 9, they missed complete motions.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was like, all
So, I mean,
right.
at the very least, like, let's try to at least get the motions and the votes and the right people talking, and then,
Okay, so for now, we're just going to
Yes,
table the
no.
minutes, and
Did you
then,
have a contract for this company? I mean, was there any sort of guarantee that they would like,
do it.
it wasn't to your
right way.
satisfaction? Yeah, I'm just wondering.
yeah, can we ask for a do-over is what you're saying? I mean,
I
it's
mean,
like,
you spent money for a product. If you didn't get what you expected to be
it's
delivered.
a good point.
I don't know,
Yeah,
but it may
I-
be more trouble than it's
We
worth.
can talk about that at the
Well,
work
why don't you guys
session.
look at the contract and see what it says, and then we can revisit the minutes then, and I'll give you these changes for the 531.
Yeah,
Need
and
to
I feel
redline
going
those.
forward, it's probably because of this contract. I think what you were doing before on your own is fine, and we go back, well, I imagine we'll just go back to that and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
You're just working through the set, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
So we're
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
just go
table
back
B?
to.
Yes, table B.
Table B, and,
Could
oh,
you-
sorry, and should I continue?
Sure.
Well,
Yep.
can I ask one question? If you don't mind? Do you want, is the consensus to send the comments that you have now currently to
Might as
Barbie?
well, we've done the work, she's done the work. Get it to her and have her just double check, and I think you sent yours in.
Did you get front and back, though?
Yes.
Yes, they have front and back now. The first time I scanned it in, my paralegal wasn't there and I messed it up. It was just one-sided. It wasn't front and back.
Okay,
So I
so,
need paralegal.
so as long as those who have worked on it,
Yeah,
get it
just
to
for
you,
clarification.
and we'll just say those. And then for the rest of it, let's get some clarity in the work session, if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
And I
then-
hate to prolong this, but the October 10th, I don't know if you looked, like half the meeting apparently is missing, the audio. It just, it stops, and it just says, the rest of the audio was blank. And so they didn't transcribe the rest of them. So if anyone has
Is
the
it
October 10th.
blank on the website?
It's on the actual meeting minute draft, it just sort of stops right in the middle of the meeting.
Yeah, but is the audio like on the website? Like, can you hear it?
I don't
Okay,
know.
we haven't gotten that far to
I don't
see
know.
if
We
it's
lose
on
the
there.
audio is what she's saying, so.
No, I know, but I'm saying,
The one that's out
the
there.
one that's like on our website, did it stop too?
No, see, there's two or three parts to the October 10th
Do you
meeting.
not understand?
so
And
maybe
so,
she-
and so I think what they did was, because I sent them by thumb drives, all parts of them, I think they
Oh.
just missed that part. And if they did, then I can go back and
Okay.
transcribe, finish
Okay.
So
those.
make a note for,
But yeah, we still paid them for it,
So-
so we need to look at the
So,
contract.
We only
October
paid for the
10th,
hours.
Mayor?
Yeah,
Oh,
October
okay,
10th,
so-
they stopped right in the middle of the meeting minutes.
I don't even know, it's not far.
I think
That's
we-
an action item.
Yeah.
okay. Anything else,
So sorry
Mary?
to prolong that, I just
It's
wanted
all
to
right.
double check. And then the only thing, what else was I gonna pull off? New business item B, that was just supposed to be a work session discussion item. I promised a resident I would throw out there. Don't really need to talk about that.
Table which one?
B,
B.
new business item
New
B.
business, okay.
Are we tabling it or removing it?
Can we move it, move it to the work session? And then
If you're not
I
sure, you
was.
can remove it and always add it back later.
Well, to be honest with you, I just got over the flu for the first time yesterday, so I haven't really thought too much about this. I just knew I needed to send it to you all, and I didn't. So let's just
Until the
table it
work
for now.
session? Is that what you
When the
said?
next draft agenda comes out,
Okay.
well, so I don't
Okay,
overthink it.
I put it on the work session, is
Yes,
that okay?
yeah.
Okay.
And then I need help with A, because the legal services and contracts was something I just kind of wanted to get more information about, but it feels like this might tie into, now, it might actually tie into the amendment, budget amendment. So I think maybe we can meld those things together, and if that's the case, we can take out A. I don't know how you want to do that.
If that's what the intent, because I didn't get anything on the legal services contracts, if that's the intent of just talk about how it affect, where we're at legal, is that all you're gonna talk about?
Yeah, so
Because we don't
originally-
have any other documents. but-
Right, so that originally, that was one of my discussion on a work session, which we all decided was not necessarily gonna need all the backup ground.
Yep.
And the staff just moved it to this agenda. And so, but that was before I knew that an amendment was coming, budget amendment was coming. So as long as you guys are okay, if we, within that budget amendment discussion, I might have questions about the legal services and contracts.
Well, I think that's what it's about, so that would make sense to have questions about it. So I'm fine with that, so we'll
Yeah.
strike A.
So strike A.
Anything else?
That's it for me.
Mary?
Oh, survey questions.
Survey, and then you said something about Christie, if you want to.
Oh, right. The survey questions, from what I understand, the planning board wanted a chance to look at the questions again. And so rather than duplicate or have cross conversations going on, we're going to remove that, table that until the next item.
And their meeting is when?
The
26.
26th.
So do we have a meeting before that?
No,
28.
afterwards,
Versus
so that's
28.
good, so we can talk about it then and maybe finalize it, so we
Okay.
can get it out.
It's,
So we're moving
Probably.
it to the 20, go ahead, I'm sorry.
well, their meeting's on the 26th, so that's 2 days prior to you all, so we won't actually have the agenda questions, except for what we have now, but there's not going to be a whole lot of changes.
I think they were only talking
Changes
about
are
one
right.
item. In the retreat, they only talked about one item changing.
Yes, but
But you never know.
It could, but we have the stuff now, so we have it prepared, so I would suggest that we be ready for it, and then if we have if it's a lot more that we're just being inundated with, then.
I can just put exactly what we have in the agenda packets now. Y'all can go ahead and start reviewing them, as you go along, but it should be very similar to what.
Right, and understand that there may be some last minute additions, 2 days.
Yeah, which is
Like
fine.
right after we hear from planning board, if we can get
So
that.
this is gonna be.
So that'll be
work
tabled
session.
to work session.
Okay.
And, believe Christy Maher had sent in an application for the planning board. I spoke to her this afternoon, and she said she didn't know that there was other applications in. And so, given that there are other applications, she said, just please keep it on file. And
Oh,
that
okay.
if you need someone, that was it.
I mean, I called her yesterday to talk to her, and we played, or she called me back, and I haven't had a chance to call her back, so my plan was to call her before the next meeting, and hopefully we can.
Decide by,
Yeah, decide by the.
on the work session. We have 2 applicants,
Yeah.
essentially.
Well, they
I'm fine
stay
with
on
that.
file for 2
Yeah.
2
Okay.
years.
years, right?
Well, they're offering, I haven't talked to either one.
Oh,
I know
see.
Christie's name, I've never talked to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't either.
I've been to his house, but I don't know him. So if you all are okay with the work session, I'd like to talk to him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Oh,
But
I see. I'm
Unless
sorry,
Christie's
I
thinks just
misheard.
removing it altogether.
So everybody get a chance to reach out, talk to who you need to talk to, and then hopefully we can make a decision by the,
That's what I would like to do.
if you're okay with making
Not
a
really.
decision at a work session. Okay.
So is that just item E, or are we then moving that?
Do we need to talk
Table
about
two.
them, or, I mean, I feel like
Are
until we
you-
talk to the people, we can't really have an educated conversation.
Right, because all we have is an application.
So
right?
you
We
wanna
have
table the
Chris's.
review?
Well, I would say
Or
let's make
move
it, if we can vote on it that day, that'd be good. If everybody agrees, I know we said we
by
weren't
that
going
date, it won't
to,
be a review, it'll be
It
a
was just-
decision.
but, yeah.
Right.
They're talking
Discussion and
about
consideration.
planning board.
Everyone will have a chance to talk to them, and if you want to say anything in the work session,
So work session.
save it for
we're
the
gonna-
work session. So we're going
Okay,
to table to
so
the
we're
work
gonna
session.
table that until the work session?
Yeah, but we're
Okay.
gonna
But
make
it's,
it
but we're going to change the verbiage,
to discussion and consideration.
discussion and consideration of. Turn this on.
Bless you.
But all your moves down, that's not
I'm fine.
the room.
Sickies.
Yeah.
No,
These
fine.
sickos. That's gonna be a good sound bite. Alright. Alright, so,
You done?
That's for me.
Is that it?
Robert, anything?
The only thing I have is and we can leave it the closed session. I don't object to the closed session, it's just that we call it street versus village. And really what it's about is, I've been trying to get a look at, it's not public distribution, just a look at the privileged documents that were dubbed privileged. I thought being a council member, I had access to at least review anything and everything, so that I can do my own investigation of what's been going on, what's going to happen, and I've been told no repeatedly. So that's what that closed session is really about.
The
So
documents are related to that lawsuit.
But why don't we call something what it is?
Because when you go into a closed session, you have to cite the statute, the exception, and if you're discussing information that's related to the lawsuit, you've got to name the lawsuit and the file number.
But I don't want to discuss the documents as much as I want to discuss why I can't see documents.
Yeah, he's
You
talking about
follow me?
privilege.
Which feels more like open session, to talk about why
I thought you wanted to see the documents.
I do. Am I
Okay,
gonna
that
get
has to
see
happen in
them?
closed session.
But am I going to see them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, assuming everyone votes yes. I don't have a vote in the matter.
Okay. So I'm okay, I just
So what do you want to do with the closed session then?
leave it, it's fine.
Okay.
I just wanted to highlight what it was about, it just, to read it, it just sounded a little vague, I guess is the word I'm reaching for.
Okay.
Other
Anything
than
else?
that, you guys struck the other two things I wanted to talk about.
Which ones? Well, it doesn't matter.
Oh, no, I wanted to push into work session.
Oh, okay, so you were in agreement with that,
Yeah, we're all
okay.
on the same page.
I
Anything
wanna, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Robert,
I think he's done.
Are you done?
I think so.
Okay, I want to push the ETJ to work session because I think it's totally just a thought, a discussion that I've been talking to Christina about, so, and some other municipalities, so that is total just discussion, so we can move that to work session too.
Okay.
And then, I just have a question about C, Robert. Do you have any, like, documents, or were we supposed to
No,
review
it's-
anything, or?
It was more questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Questions and roundtable.
okay.
I don't have
For C?
I just wasn't sure, like, if I had.
I didn't provide any
Okay.
paperwork because I didn't have any. It's
Okay.
just,
And that's financial records, location, retention, and access. Okay.
Okay, so do we want to make that A then?
That will be A.
And then A, then B?
B is
then-
CCOG delegate.
Yeah, then C.
C is discussion of law enforcement. You understand what that's about? There was a little bit of documents there. Kim, I think,
Yeah.
has taken that.
And that's
D
kind of
is
our main-
calendar, which we need to revisit, and then my
E.
original I, which was budget agenda amendment, is now an E.
Yep,
when Kim's done, I did have two things.
I'm finished.
Review of action items, okay.
I'm finished.
Good, okay.
I'm pretty flexible on calendar revisions. Is this just our meeting calendar?
Yeah.
Do you all just want to email what you all want? And
That's fine.
It's just one date.
Well,
Yeah.
Joe's got one too.
I got one. She's got one, I got one, but then we had already decided at the beginning of the year that the second Tuesday of June was not gonna work, so,
And then we moved it to the first Thursday, and I can't do that date now.
and then mine's on the July date, so.
I think I've got one bad week the whole year, so I'm pretty
Okay.
flexible.
Okay, so do you just want me to, do you wanna?
Well, we still have to, if we can do
We have
it
to
here,
approve
then
it.
you,
We
then
have
you
to
announce
approve
it,
it.
then she
Yes,
puts
and
it
post
and
it.
puts it on
And
the
I have to
thing.
post it.
That's the only
Hopefully it
reason
won't-
we were,
yeah, hopefully
it
it won't take but
shouldn't,
just like,
shouldn't take that long.
And then, under reports and updates, 2, 3, and 4, I just want to table those, delete them.
Where is that at?
oh, up top, 2, 3, and 4.
We don't have a planning board chairman,
Oh, yeah.
or a deputy.
If y'all are.
Do you have
okay, we can
reports,
actually
do you have any
table
reports
all
on
of it.
those?
You want to just table all reports?
We can.
Do you have an administrator? Jesus
No, I don't.
Lord, we're gonna be out of here by like 7:15.
Hey, hey, hey.
Thank you.
don't-
Sorry,
don't
I
curse
jinxed it, I jinxed
You
it.
crazy.
I jinxed it.
And Reen's over there going, wow, these meetings are quick.
Oh, yeah.
Just move everything to 2 weeks down. Love this place.
I have no idea. Okay. All right, so wait, what are we doing? Are we just
Tabling all the reports.
Like all of them.
all of them?
Including administrators?
Table
I'm
it
fine
to
with
skip.
Including yours?
I don't have anything to report.
You want to talk about anything? You're in a town hall? We're always talking about
Yeah,
town
the
hall.
hotel's on the back.
I got
Okay.
town hall over there.
I don't see it. I don't see town hall.
Okay.
It's on the second page.
Make these minutes easy.
Oh, I see it. It's up there by itself, kind of hiding, so Village Hall, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I came here for number 5 for reports and updates, but it was just to say, hi, I'm the new client.
We should leave that on there then.
We'll leave
Should
that
we-
on there.
we'll leave
Introduce-
number
introduction.
5 on. We'll make that number 1.
Okay.
How about that?
Okay.
There you go.
There we go. Okay.
What is that under?
Reports. It's-
Reports,
yeah,
okay.
So we're gonna make 5 number 1 and table the rest.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Good. Anybody got anything else?
May get the hockey tonight. All right,
Nick,
I'll
you
need-
didn't have anything?
I need a motion to amend the agenda as stated.
So move.
So moved.
All's in favor? Motion passes. Next up is Pledge of Allegiance.
Let me move the phone so we can see the flag.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, I have public comment period. Is anyone signed up?
No one signed
No
up.
one signed up? Okay. Moving right along, we're, no presentations today, reports and updates. We have number 1, planner update.
Okay.
Just wanted to welcome Rohit. He's done a good job this second day on the job. Really put him into a lot of training yesterday with the League of Municipalities. I don't know if you have any comments, but he's tackled his first couple of citizen-initiated questions, and so he's catching on pretty quick and delving into our code book and loving every minute of it.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's true.
Are you looking to, yeah, it's fun reading. It's when I can't sleep, I go to my big ordinance book.
Perfect.
That's what Christina said too.
Yeah. Keep that in mind while you're reading it, because I think it's confusing at some points. But the, is there someone that we're, like, having him reach out to other towns that,
That's on our list of things to do, to reach out to Weddington and Wesley Chapel and Waxhaw to see if, he can job shadow for a little bit to learn the roles. And he's gonna join the APA, the American Planning Association, and jump on board with some of their trainings as well, so.
And we have previous planners that are currently planners in other cities, so I have it on the schedule to talk to them at some point too.
good, good. And then, obviously, anything we can do to support. I mean, I know when Lisa was here, for instance, we encouraged her to take, if there's classes available that the village can pay for that help whether it gets accreditation for that or whatever it leads into, because I think there's an accreditation of planners, is there not?
There is.
Yeah, so whatever we can do to help you work towards that as we're moving forward, so.
Which previous planners are you all reaching out to?
We haven't reached out to any of them yet.
Okay.
There's Lisa, I think she's in either Matthews. It's also, there's a lot of.
Lynn Hare has been a planner for a long time in Stanley. She's been there for a very long time.
But not here.
No, none of them have been
Lisa's
here.
great. And reaching out to
Oh,
Lisa.
In Weddington.
Yeah, Lisa's great. Just would love to know, I'm looking at her, love to know that he's given every advantage to succeed.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes going backwards can hurt through that. So I don't know what other planners that used to be here you want to reach out to other than Lisa, but tread lightly. It's my advice, it's not an order.
For sure.
We're scaring you yet?
No, I mean, I understand that the ordinance needs to be reworked, and I guess what you're saying is if you look back, you might sit in your old ways, which I think you're trying not to do, so.
A lot has changed since some of those planners were here. That's probably the best way to look at it.
I don't think we're not looking to like educate, you just want someone to lean on every now and then when he's got questions. So just trying to find someone that can call on to have that level of camaraderie with him, so.
Does COG help us with that at all? Or any of the government?
I mean,
That
just
we
like the
pay
school of
into?
government, we have resources that we can tap into when we have questions and,
And there's a planner listserv.
Yeah,
That's
there
a
is.
pretty good
That's
message.
a good resource.
I was just gonna say, there's a local,
subscribed to that.
most of the local planners here get together as well, I think, once every few months for lunch and that sort of thing.
oh, do they?
Yeah,
Okay.
they used to, I think they still do. But, and Lisa Thompson would know about that. So even just to meet some of the other planners in face to face, and it's just our local group, that might be.
And he knows that you have a good knowledge of where things are in the ordinances too, so if you can't find something.
Yeah, if you can call me anytime, yeah.
Lisa and Mary are really sharp planner,
And
not me.
don't be afraid to make suggestions, because everybody's always learning, and I find, and if you're not, I mean, there may be something in another town that we're not doing here that, you find out or locate that is worth at least taking a look at, be open to that, so. But welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions? You live close, right?
Yeah, I live right off of Marvin Road, actually.
Okay.
In Charlotte, though, but right really close.
We won't hold that against you. So, anyone else? Okay, thank you. Next up, we have two consent items. I need to amend a motion to approve the consent item agendas as amended.
So moved.
What?
Did you raise your hand?
Can I just make sure that y'all understand the tax recommendation is for the self-funding, the fire tax, if y'all didn't read that.
Self-funding, which is what I think we all agreed to,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
okay, yeah. Treasury report's good, and the only other thing is, why does it have Hall there?
Huh?
It just says Hall on
Call for
number.
public hearing for trail standards and ordinance to be
Available,
held.
Shall, okay. I was just reading A and then Hall, and then I'm like, okay, sorry, my bad.
So pretty.
Little typos. All right, so I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Right.
Motion passes. Next up, we have discussion consideration of financial records, location, retention, and access.
That was
Councilman
me.
Davis. Yep.
I would just like to know that any of the invoices, any documents related to financial records are easily accessible for public records requests by the administrator and by the clerk. I did a public records request for some invoices, and Christina, I was in her office when she was looking for some of them, and they're not on the V drive, and they should be. Does Robertson, as the financial officer, have a laptop? Where are they kept?
She has a folder somewhere in her office, and sometimes there is a point where she scans them all in and saves them somewhere. I just don't know exactly where they're saved at on the V drive.
And that's my concern, is when you showed me the V drive, just sort of a snapshot, just because you guys probably haven't seen it. It's not the most organized drive anyways, and that's nothing to do with you, it was that way when you got here. But then when you go looking for financial documents, and I know Chris very well, I know how she keeps things in her drawers. I guarantee you they're organized. I mean, she keeps every subcontractor, every vendor in their own separate file, and they'll be separated by calendar year or fiscal year. But the point is, if she doesn't make it in, or, you know, God forbid,
There's got to be a process.
it's gonna be a process.
For,
And
she
right
gets
now
hit by
it's
a bus,
over.
we need to know what that process is and where she should be able to access it. Absolutely.
Correct, that's the discussion I wanna have.
And they may very well be there somewhere, but you saw how embedded things are in those files upon files upon files, so.
That's where, and it's accounts, you know, it's a roundtable discussion. I'd like to see, certainly I'd love to see the whole V drive more organized.
Me too.
What are you doing this weekend? But, just
I'm out of
kidding.
town, actually.
But certainly, like, the financial stuff deserves its own folder. And then inside that financial folder, there should be the vendors. I don't know what is the correct way to do it for say, statute, and I don't know what the best benefit is to you to be able to access them. That's something you and the finance officer can talk about. I just know there's a need, and it's scary thinking that all those documents, out of everything that's uploaded on the V drive on a daily basis, right? Mary, you told me once things have to be backed up daily.
Yeah, I think there's an automatic backup that generates each
Yeah,
day.
it's backed up on Carbonite too,
Right.
which the
But-
files are there for 30 days.
But that's only if you're working off the V drive or you put things on the V drive. I don't know about individual computers. So if I think what you were looking for too was just general access to all computers in the office regardless, right? I think we talked a little bit about that.
Well, in terms of the yes, but in
Yeah,
terms of the
okay.
financial stuff, if she's not here and you need to access something, you should be able to. If you're not here and you should be able to access it, we shouldn't be crippled by one person being out or not being available. And in terms of the financial stuff, you know, agendas, minutes, all these things, if they're backed up daily, it seems to me the financial stuff could quite possibly trump all of them, and it's not being backed up daily. I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we do have organization of the V drive on our list of things to do when we get to that point, but I will look into the financials and make sure we can try to segment that out a little bit easier than what we have it now.
What I would hope is not that you go in and try organizing the V drive right away. It's like me, I can't, you know, clean up the bookshelf without reorganizing the whole room. I should just stay focused on that, but I end up over here. All I'm looking for is, as soon as possible, financial stuff backed up, and then you all figure out where it goes, but as long as at least two of you know where it's at, it technically be three, finance, administrator, and clerk. If all three of you know where to access this stuff, then it won't get lost. Does that make sense to the rest of y'all?
Absolutely. So do you know what, you have a clarity of what you should be doing next? It sounds like there's confusion on accessing it, so I guess we're gonna talk to Chris on having it more available.
Yeah, I mean,
Or-
I'm sure that most of the stuff is already there. It's just a matter of trying to find things when you're looking for
How she's
certain
following it.
folders. Yeah, and it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way
Right.
things are organized.
Well, and I think that's part of the problem, or the situation that we're in, is there's so many people that access it, and people save, you know, the land use plan as the land use plan, and other people, you know, save it as something else, and so
Yeah.
you've got the same stuff, and then you can't find it. So,
Isn't
I'd
there a
say this,
search?
it takes a long time.
I was gonna say,
sometimes
there's
to
a
get
lot of
confusing.
folders I've seen.
The other, if this illustrates it, I remember at one point looking for the CIPs such that we created them at the time. And I remember getting into the office and thinking, okay, great, I'm gonna pull in all this information, I'm gonna study all night, and I'm gonna get caught up with where we're at. And I pulled all that information down. It was sort of, the period of trying to get adjusted. Went through all the information only to find out when I sat with Chris, she said, oh, that stuff's all old. Like, well, yeah, so it just felt like if there is newer stuff, we want to make sure, I think this is what we're talking about, you want to make sure that that stuff's available to the rest of the staff and or council if they need it. That kind of, just regularly updating, I guess.
We've started doing some of that just for like policy standpoint, because I
Yeah.
had the same problem when I was amending one of the rules of procedure. Like initially, I pulled an old file down and amended it, and didn't realize it was an old one until after it was done.
Right, on the first meeting we had, I think that
And
was
so
the case.
Barbie and I have at least started this with like policies. I've created like an old folder, and we just drag everything old there so we don't get confused with old stuff for that very reason. So.
Well, if you've seen my files, I date everything backwards, right? Year, month, date, and I still do that, just because it helps me remember what version everything is and how to organize it, what's old, what's new. But if you've got policies starting like that, then I think we're on the right track.
Invoices, we can definitely start on that, not a problem. I mean, that's really easy. And then we'll slowly just start chipping at them out and then try to narrow it down.
So from a process standpoint, Joe Blow comes in and asks for public records request. He goes to her. She then, if it's financial, should probably be able to reach out to Chris for an email, say, I need these documents.
Yes,
Chris should be able to do it, or if is that,
that's pretty much how it goes, yes.
Yeah.
okay, so we didn't get that, is what we're saying, or is it just, I mean, is that what you're
I
saying?
can tell you my experience
Okay.
that sort of trickled into this. I asked for something, and she did what she was, is this closed session?
No.
Okay. Because I don't want any of it to sound like a complaint, I'm trying to offer suggestions.
I'm just trying to get process down,
Okay.
like, what is the process, if it,
So I'll
how it
work-
should work?
Understand the spirit in which I'm saying it is I'm trying to get to the point where it shouldn't be so frustrating, especially as a council member. So I can only imagine what the public would feel like. As a council member, if I'm trying to investigate something that someone says is going on, it's wrong, and it's my job to do so, and it's all our jobs, I should be able to touch those documents.
Anyone should.
Anyone, right. So, in what happened to me was I asked for them, and I got a handwritten thing. It was more like a schedule in the documents. And then the next attempt, keep in mind days or weeks went by. The next attempt was partial documents. The third attempt was handled directly by you, and I got everything, as far as I know. Because and that's at the point where you showed me, I think on the V drive, what was there and what wasn't there. It shouldn't be that convoluted. I wasn't asking for the world, I was asking for professional services
Yeah.
invoices, that's all it was.
Yeah.
But it took a very long time, and it didn't go through Barbie, so
Okay.
don't get me wrong, no. It took a very long time, and it felt very laborsome.
Okay.
And it shouldn't be that way.
Well, I'll just I'll leave it up to you guys to figure that out internally so that process is smoother, because I don't know, I never asked for a public record, so I haven't been there yet, so, but I see your point clearly, if it's not, you should be able to access it
Sort
with
of
a
a
sheet.
chink, it's sort of a chink in our system in that they're not even, we don't know for sure.
Yeah.
It appears that they're not updated daily or whenever the work is being done. I
Okay.
realize it's not every day,
Okay,
but it should be updated when the work's complete, in my opinion.
or at least the documents, even if they weren't updated, they should be able to be accessed.
She should be able to walk, I'm pointing at you, Christine, the administrator should be able to walk in the absence of any one person and go to
I agree.
if they can't get it in V drive, go to a hard file and find it.
Right.
Okay. All right, anything else?
That's all I had on that.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have discussion of appointing CCOG delegate and alternate. Okay, so we thought we did this, but apparently
I thought we did this.
We're just looking for a reappointment.
a reappointment to who the
delegate
the
is
alternate.
to the-
So I think I'm still the delegate, am I not?
I thought Mary was the
Well,
alternate.
That's what I thought
That
we
was for,
did.
that was for.
I was trying-
Crap up.
Wasn't this a fire, was this?
That was the Charlotte Regional
Yeah,
thing.
you're right, you're
Crap.
right.
It was Crapo, yeah,
Crapo.
CRTPO.
Yeah, that's-
That you got off of, so this is something completely new.
COG is
So-
different, I think, right?
Yeah, it is.
All I think we're doing is removing Nick, because I'm okay with staying on CCOG when I can get to the meetings and stuff, I try to. but-
There's one tomorrow night.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
February, the annual meeting is February 13th.
I guess I'll try and go there.
Hey, Robert.
So much for keeping,
Probably used to give you a name tag when you.
Yeah, I used.
Did you get fed?
Oh,
You
yeah,
do
we're
get
fed.
fed.
Oh, there you go.
Get
I'm all
fed?
in, so.
Oh, yes.
All right.
But
well,
it's at
then- where's it
at the
at?
COGS office.
It's
Uptown.
at,
It's not uptown, they're
9815
over there
David Taylor
at
Drive.
David Taylor Drive.
North Charlotte.
Off of,
That'd be 28262.
I still have my evening open tomorrow.
At 6:15.
so I will be there. So if you
Yeah,
can just send me the
Mallard Creek
details
Church.
on that. As long as I don't have any other
So
responsibilities
you're gonna be the delegate, who's
family-wise.
gonna be the alternate?
I said I'll continue to be the delegate. Do we want to nominate, anyone want to nominate themselves?
Does Kim want to do it?
No, I've still got PRG. That's my extra meeting.
But
It's-
you only
it's an
have to
alternate. You
attend
don't have
if
to
the,
attend if
if the
I
delegate's
can't
not
attend.
able to
I
So
know,
show.
I'm saying I'm
but
gonna
I still have
attend
an
tomorrow.
extra meeting every month.
Christine, you have nothing to do tomorrow. Come up with me. We can appoint a staff member, can't we?
No.
Robert, you want to do it?
Robert, you
I heard you say you wanted to do it.
That was what I was-
Huh?
That's fine, I'll.
Had to be there?
You have to be there.
Oh, I think,
No.
There's
If
something
nobody
else,
else
there
wants
is a
to.
board where the mayor has to be.
Okay.
I don't know.
anyways, I'm going tomorrow. If you can send me the address and time, I'll be there.
It's in your book.
I'm sure it is, but I'm just
Were you
making
volunteering?
life easy.
To what?
Oh, what they.
Be the alternate?
Can staff
Yeah.
do it?
No, staff can't be the alternate for that board.
That's right.
Don't all jump
I mean,
at once.
I would be glad to go,
Oh,
I
you have?
really would.
You'll be the alternate?
Sure.
Okay.
I was gonna say if Mary.
So someone make a motion
I'll do
to
it.
have
I mean,
Mary
I don't
be the
care.
alternate for
If you don't want to do it, I'll do
CCOG.
it.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
It's not, you only have to
Okay.
attend when the delegate is
I like to
not
make a
available.
motion.
Or, yeah.
Oh, only when Joe doesn't go?
I'm
Yeah.
gonna do a funny once you appoint her. Go ahead. Make a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Councilmember Scoot as the alternate for the Village of Marvin
Before we do that, do we have to remove him?
COG.
You just.
I know.
Yeah.
You just told me to do it.
Okay, go ahead. I just want to make sure we don't have to remove him first.
Do you want
In
to
a
be
motion.
removed, Nick?
What?
Do you want to be removed?
In a motion, before someone gets appointed.
Okay. Well, do we need to?
I mean, he's already expired, his term is expired.
Yeah, it's already
Oh, okay.
expired,
Oh, okay.
so
okay.
it's not
Sorry.
a,
Sorry, I'm just correcting. Go
Yeah.
ahead. My apologies.
yeah.
Am I good now? You sure? Okay.
And it really doesn't have to be a motion, it can just be an appointment.
Okay.
You don't have to make a motion for an
Mary's good.
appointment.
Mary's good?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. I'm sick. Mary, can you make some more? Just kidding. Wouldn't do that to you.
Okay.
All
Where are
right.
these meetings again?
It's at the COG office there on David Taylor Boulevard.
David Taylor.
It's up in,
I'll send
like,
you the address
It's
tomorrow.
north. It's in the meeting. It's in the meeting packet, but it's like north of uptown.
Oh, did they send you a meeting packet and everything?
It's in, I mean, it's in like, it's,
Well,
here's the
they
list,
will.
here's the dates.
It's in your it's in the packet, that,
Oh, is it-
it's in
oh,
the
it's in the
electronic,
packet.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'll figure it out. See, we're all new sometimes.
All right. Good job.
All right. I've been to those before, so it's, where are we?
Law enforcement.
Okay, next up we have C, new business C, discussion of law enforcement contract.
Okay, so we talked about this a little bit on Friday. Christina, do you want to talk about what they talked about first, and then I'll.
So I met with Union County Sheriff's Office probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they gave me a big presentation. It's one of the ones that they were trying to come to council to do. They're still willing to do so if y'all want a presentation on it. But basically, in short, they're asking for one more deputy to help cover the village. There has been rumor going around that they are asking for a supervisor for their contracts, including Village of Marvin. However, they are actually asking for the county to fully fund that position, so we wouldn't have any impact on that whatsoever from a financial standpoint. And our decision to or not to add another deputy to that contract doesn't influence that decision at all. The county makes that decision as to if they're gonna fund it or not, so that's in their hands. But they are asking for another officer to help coverage here. They have looked at the numbers and they feel that it warrants another officer, which is roughly $100,000 additional to our current contract, which would be roughly 1 cent on the tax rate.
Now, having the officer we have now, isn't that optional? I mean, we could,
Add an additional one?
having the one we have now. I mean, that's at our discretion, to have an officer, not have an officer.
We have a contract.
We do have
I don't
contract.
think we can just get rid of them, right?
Oh, no, I get we have a contract, but
I'm just saying it's optional, you're just asking if it's optional.
we are not statutorily required to have our,
Oh,
have an
right.
officer.
It's-
Yeah.
Well,
it's a
that
decision.
was part of it when the annexation years ago was, we provided no services. So we got an officer, so we provided some services to the public.
So we probably want to have at least one.
No, I don't disagree, but
He's just trying to figure out.
I'm drawing a picture for y'all. So because we have one, now we have to have two?
No. They're just
Well-
suggesting it.
Well, that's, I
Like
mean,
they did last year.
In reality, it's, the county doesn't want to raise their taxes by hiring more officers, so if they can get us to do it, we have to raise our taxes. The same thing, but it saves them from saying we need a couple of cents more for our county tax because we're gonna hire 5 more officers. So if they can get a village to do it for, you know, we.
Or other towns
Yeah,
to get
yeah,
do it. I
yeah,
mean,
to get other towns to do it. I mean, I'm
it's,
Is that it in a nutshell? Is that what you heard?
they did it last year. They suggested we needed one. We went through the whole year. Didn't.
That's what I was gonna ask. I thought
Sorry.
that they had said that, you know, for the longest time, they had said that Marvin was always talking about security and yet really didn't even need more officers. So I was curious, when did that change? When did the assessment
Well-
change? Was it last year? Was the first time?
I think I know what Nick was gonna say.
No, I'm just saying, I've had residents over the last couple, over the years, say that, you know, where they've called for the sheriff, especially on a midnight, you know, or in the middle of the night, would there be a 45-minute delay on getting the sheriff there, because they only have, I believe at that time, they only had like 5 sheriffs covering the whole
5 or
county
6 the whole
from
county.
midnight to 8 in the morning. So they were responding from wherever, it took them 45 minutes. And I've had residents say to me, if I knew I had to wait 45 minutes for a police officer to get there, I would have moved to Mecklenburg where I get better coverage, you know, even if I pay a little bit more taxes, so.
So that would be, in my view, a good survey question. Do you feel like, would you be willing to pay a penny extra if that's what you're telling us?
It
I
is,
think
it
it's
is
on
a
there.
question.
On there?
Yeah, it's
It's
a
on
question.
there.
It's
Okay, I
on
thought
Right.
that was on there.
And the
Yeah.
discussion that we had at the retreat was that we have to make a decision about a tax increase before, you know, we approve the budget. So we can't just arbitrarily say in September, we're gonna go up 1 cent on the tax rate. So we would have to make that decision if we're gonna do that before the budget's approved, so that we have that in consideration. However, what we can do, and what I had discussed at the retreat, is a side conversation that we'll have at the work session is about roads and changing around that resurfacing schedule that could potentially free up $100,000 per year and could help to pay for at least that first year, with the assumption that we would have to go up next year if that's what council wants to do.
Remind me, Christina, that was something that you all discussed on Friday? Okay, I just.
And we will discuss it again at the next work session. So,
I guess the only other thing to realize is that, you know, waiting another officer is not gonna really give you a lot more coverage, because, you know, you're still only gonna have 2 officers, and depending on the tours they work, I mean, to actually have 24/7 coverage, 7 days a week, you need 5 officers to cover a 7-day.
Wow.
A 7-day, 24/7, you know, shift kind of thing, so.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And-
And it begs the question, when they say they want us to add one, what schedule are they suggesting? A day?
That's where I would say that I really, before I'd even consider looking at adding another officer, I would want a little more, this is me, opinion of one, a little more control of what it says in the contract,
Yeah.
meaning that the officer or the sheriff's department doesn't get to say when they're working, which it's gotten to that point now, and I like Ed a lot, and I'm sure he works around his schedules, but at the end of the day, we're being told what we're getting.
Yeah.
And it's like, take it or leave it, this is the only, they're approaching it as in the only game in town, when there can be other options.
Well, that's, I mean, that's in the contract, it is, you know, they work for the sheriff, they don't work for us. They work
And
for
you have
the county sheriff, and the county
5.7
sheriff makes the determination on when they'll work, what their schedule is, what they.
All you currently have is 5.75 hours every 28-day cycle.
What are you saying?
They
5.7?
work less than 6 hours a day for Marvin, an average.
Yeah, 'cause
Over 28, that's considered.
You
Because
get
it's training
161
time.
hours per
Right.
28-day
Right.
cycle.
That's considered full-time. However, if he's not here and something happens, officer from the county is still required to come here. Again, going back to the point, they're coming to us to pay for it, you know, so we have an extra one on duty, and they can fund it through their own budgetary constraints, but
And we don't have to make a decision, we can just tell them at this moment, you know, we're still interested in just one, wait until the survey comes back, see how to address it then, and we can always add it later, we don't have to add it.
right.
This
I don't
is-
think,
I also
the county has to send anybody else.
Yeah.
They have-
Oh,
they
Yes,
have-
they do.
yes, they do.
They have a sector that covers Marvin normally.
If we got rid of our officer and something happened, they are required through our taxes to send.
Well, yeah,
That's what I'm
saying.
saying.
But there's a sector that covers the Marvin area.
Right,
He's working, whoever Ed's working, you're not.
right.
Some say.
Right.
But if Ed leaves, they're not gonna send somebody to replace Ed, they'll just have that sector cover you.
Right, right.
Yeah.
I'm just
That's
saying is,
45
there's
minute
coverage
week.
either way. It may not be as quick because we may have Ed here working on his full-time. I have no interest in removing our full-time person, our one full-time. However, I do question how the contract's written and how we basically are going into a contract and they're telling us what to do. They decide everything. And at the end of the day, they do work for us. I mean, we're paying their salary, so we should have a say in what happens. So if they're not willing to have that discussion, then we talk about what we talked about with what some of the other towns are trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Which you can go into that if you want.
Well, we
What
met
happened.
with a couple council people from Weddington and Wesley Chapel, and they're, you know, they're in the same predicament that we're in with, you know, the county coming and actually asking for more than just an additional, they're asking for.
May I interrupt? Yeah, they're asking for a supervisor. They're asking to pay for a supervisor. A guy that's not even gonna be out
And
there.
additional too.
And us paying for it. And we're like, why would we do this for a supervisor who's not gonna be on the streets?
Lori, explain that again, I want to be sure I understood.
That's not us, though.
No,
No,
but like,
still,
but like
just-
Weddington and Wesley Chapel,
Yeah.
and I don't remember which one, but they were asking for a supervisor, but then additional deputies, but the supervisor would just be supervising and not patrolling.
Okay.
So,
For us to
So they
Depends-
want
depends on how
to,
many-
they
how many
essentially
sheriff
want to
there.
supply an entire mini police force at the,
I'm saying if they
from the
have,
county,
depending on how
Right.
many
But
deputies
at-
are assigned there.
yeah,
then
but at
require
the,
a
at the
supervisor.
expense of the
of the
municipality.
municipality, correct.
Okay.
Indian Trail.
That's how I
Well,
understood
Indian Trail's
it,
got
yes.
12 deputies, there's 15 deputies.
Indian Trail has a
superintendent,
lot,
and-
it's like a $3 million operation, just with their contract.
Yeah, they have-
Well,
they have
in an office.
lieutenants.
Indian Trail has their own, they have their
No.
own, it isn't their
Sheriff's
own.
office.
No,
No.
it's the sheriff.
Oh.
They've got an
12
office,
deputies or 13 deputies.
but they've got
Why
a
do I
sheriff's
think
office.
there's not
there.
more?
There's an office.
Yeah, one more than that, they have lieutenants and sergeants.
But
So-
Waxaw's their own.
Waxaw has their own police
Okay.
department.
They invited us to go sit, met over at Weddington. We were talking about, it was just basically brainstorming, shooting things, and their idea was, we're in the same boat as you, Wesley Chapel, we're all in the same. Why don't we combine forces and go in, still with what we need, what our town needs, what their town needs, but to cohesively create a stronger contract where we have more say in what they allow, what they don't allow, times, all those things that we're trying to figure is that an avenue that this council, they wanted us to bring it back to our council to discuss, is there an interest in pairing up with, not saying we're gonna have a police force that's one police force separate from the county, but,
Consortium.
Yes,
sort of, yeah.
yeah.
is what
You
it
have
comes
more-
down to.
more- You have more
Collective
leverage.
bargaining.
Well,
Yeah,
I agree with Joe that it's frustrating to spend $100,000 and not have a measure of control over it. Because I don't feel like we have any control over that.
You really
I
have,
don't.
you really have no control.
But if Weddington's saying, and they got 4 or 5 cops, and Wesley Chapel has a few cops, and we have one, and we're all under essentially the same contract, then why aren't we all sitting down with them collectively and saying, you know what,
Right.
we want more of a say in how this is written. You can't, you provide the service of law enforcement, so we're coming to you and we're asking for X. So let's have a discussion of what X means to us. What is it? What are we going to get for it in times? And every town can decide how many they want. The other option is then you farm it out to like another county municipality who has a police department. Maybe it's, you
Doesn't
go.
somebody already do that? Doesn't Waxhaw or?
Waxhaw
somebody-
has their own police department.
But doesn't someone share or borrow an officer from?
I don't think so. Wax off.
Mineral Springs may, I don't know.
I know we explored a few times. I can't remember, I remember there was a number of reasons that the idea fell apart somewhere in between. Unfortunately, I can't remember why.
I'm all for having the Union County sheriffs behind us at one officer, but when we start talking about $200,000 a year for something we have very little control over. In fact, I adore Ed. I think he does a great job. But I think are we losing it? I saw an email, and I'm guessing we don't have a say in that. And if he's replaced with someone we doesn't seem to fit, will we have a say in that?
I don't think so.
I don't think he's.
Not according to the contract.
Not going on.
Well, and I mean, I didn't even pick up on the 161 hours per 28-day cycle. And we're only getting 5.75 hours. That's crazy.
But every,
Yeah.
I know,
every 28 days.
but
yeah.
still.
And
Well,
that's not counting when they're pulled off, right?
Right.
I think that's
Because they get
including his
pulled off.
training time and his, because he has to go
Yeah,
for training.
I was gonna say, I think it is.
But,
Stuff,
but
yeah.
he's
Yeah, that's
not
all.
patrolling.
No, he's not
Like,
patrolling.
that's, I mean, like, I,
Starts making safety officers look pretty interesting.
yeah.
Well, it was back to my point where we were like trying to figure out, well, if there were communities within Marvin that had issues, pair up with other HOAs and say, okay, you need a real officer to patrol, kind of like we do over here, the officer directing traffic. Pair up with 3 other communities and that officer is, it's being paid through. The issue was, I believe the county had a billing issue with how they bill individually and split it up 3 ways. We could do that for them and
But
say,
But I had not to interrupt you, but again, time passes by, I don't remember, but probably 5 or 6 years when I was mayor, I had a conversation with Sheriff Cathy, and it was along them lines, and he basically said, no, we're not doing that. You're not gonna circumvent getting into our officer by having, hiring this one for 4 hours, this one 3 hours in this community. And
we're doing it now
Well.
with an officer on the street directing
Yeah, but
traffic.
it's not obvious that they're directing traffic, but they're not doing patrol.
But they get called away
Yeah.
while they're on patrol. If they get a
I
call,
know
they're
that
required to
was-
go
That
to
was
it.
told basically, we're not gonna let you do that. We're not gonna-
That's what
fine.
I kind of remember too, that they were trying to fix it so that we could take advantage
Yeah.
of the 3 hours here and the
Right,
3
yeah.
hours there and build our own
So,
schedule, and that was not
yeah,
something
we
they
had
were
a
going
discussion,
for.
he said, no.
Which goes back to the point, like, I think, I hear everything you're saying in terms of negotiating power, and perhaps that's possible, but at the end of the day, I'd like to see us try anything, but it has felt like in the last few years that the sheriff makes the last call, or whoever manages those contracts, and they haven't been open to a lot of flexible, creative, I don't know.
We pretty much just have to say, okay, when
Yeah.
we
Well-
make a decision.
Our point being is if we continue these meetings with the towns and they agree to, or you guys agree to send not a full quorum, but just 2 people to represent our town and say, let's get into discussions, and we get all towns agreeing, they're gonna take note of it, because if there's, not to play hardball with them, because we want them to continue. All we're asking is for a little bit of say in the contract, and the way you do it is through saying, okay, well, maybe we do go to Waxhaw and say, what would it take for you to add to your police force to cover Weddington, Wesley Chapel, and what kind of contract can you give us? And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, that's what I think we have a right to. They're still county, you know, the issue, I think, with Charlotte police officers is they weren't in Union County. So you take Stallings or wherever you want to go. And I think that's where these people who called us, I think there were 2 from Weddington, 2 from Wesley Chapel, and we met over at Weddington, they're just brainstorming how, not only are they being told they need more, but they're being told that, oh, by the way, one of them is just going to be a supervisor. And that's like, they're like, well, this is now getting out of hand. So they're bringing
I
us.
don't see any value to us to have a supervisor
No,
over one guy.
no.
I agree, but there's, Weddington, I think, has 5.
Do
But
they?
where I get
4?
frustrated, and this isn't just Union County Sheriff's Office, but we chip in a fortune for roundabouts and their state roads. But we probably only use those, we're probably only 10% of the burden, right? We have coverage from the sheriff's department without an officer, we're supposed to. But because we have one, we don't get it. You know, and if we were to delete our officer, would we be punished for that, or would we see an
Illegally, it'd be
officer?
illegal for
Oh,
them
yeah,
to do
they
that.
can't do that.
They can't do that. I mean, they can, I mean, I don't-
Right now, we,
basically saying, well, you're not going to get this. If we
Yeah.
said, hey, we're just pulling an officer, they can't say, oh, well, you may just not get the service you're used to. They're required to, think about all the other pockets of Marvin that technically aren't under Marvin, but are required to be serviced by a Union County officer.
well, and if that is pulled somewhere else, it could be argued we're not gonna get the service we've become accustomed to, because he was a good neighborhood officer, or what, community officer. But the other thing we're paying for that benefits other cities, other towns more than us, are these directional traffic officers. Almost every bit of that's pass-through traffic.
Oh, yeah.
But we pay for it.
Yep.
So that's just a frustration. I don't have an answer, but I'm expressing this frustration with people coming to Marvin because they see that we have a fund balance that may be higher than other towns because we've been careful with our money, and they'd like to spend it for us.
I'm going to throw something out there. What, do you know, what's the smallest municipality who has their own police force? Do we know in North Carolina? And what it would cost? What it costs to have 1 or 2 or 3 of your own?
One over by Biltmore or something.
All I know is having a full-fledged, like, police department, like, I mean, we could easily ask, what does Waxhaw require?
Well, but we probably have to be around 60 cents a hundred.
Right, we're gonna be way up there in
Instead of 5 cents, would be
the tax
60
rate
cents.
if you're gonna have your own police, because that.
And I'm not
because
saying
of-
that's where we need to go, but it might be an interesting way to put some of the numbers in perspective.
But if it's not just us and it's 2 other municipalities,
Now that becomes
I like the
more
way-
palatable.
Kim and Joe are going with some contract negotiation power.
I mean, the only
talking
the only
about it.
issue with getting involved with other municipalities then is it becomes a kind of a nightmare of who gets the
Who
coverage?
gets what?
When do the officers cover you?
I
When
don't
do they
think
cover
that's what
me?
they're talking about. They're talking about just as
I
a,
mean,
Collective bargaining.
Collective bargaining.
But I'm
and
saying,
then
but you have X amount of officers you're dealing with, so once you got them officers, who makes the decision on how much of the time they spend in Weddington, how much time they spend in Marvin, if they get called, I mean, it's just.
And I think what they're saying, to correct me if I'm wrong though, Kim and Joe, what you're saying is that we're not necessarily sharing officers, we're just saying, look,
yeah.
we want to create a contract that is suitable for our municipalities and suitable for the services we receive. All our officers are still our officers, whoever's assigned, but it's been bargained collectively. You've come up with a better deal, bulk rate, or,
otherwise you're making it look otherwise, they are making it look more attractive for us to encourage Waxhaw to go into the police business.
Yep.
Well, Waxaw for a lot.
And that's turnkey.
That was an option at one point. I thought Waxaw was, I could swear, a couple of years ago, 2014, Waxaw was at the time willing to write a contract with Marvin. I don't know if it was worth it at the time, but is that still an option?
I haven't talked to Steve, and we haven't even breached that because it wasn't an issue. Now that it's just coming, I think there's discussion, because I don't think, if we were to decide as a town, and Weddington on their own, and everyone decides that, you know what, we're going a whole different thing, we're going to negotiate with Waxhaw. So I don't think the sheriff's department can absorb losing all those officers, but Waxhaw, on the same breath, would need probably 8 more officers. So, you know, I see that just moving that way. It's just, I don't know if there's a better deal to be made with the Waxhaw Police Department or Stallings, or forming our own, to your point, but you got to create some sort of, like, I know there's a call-in number I have for, it goes to an office that, you know, probably won't be the county office, but, I mean, it's just.
Well, see, without competition though, right, this is why Waxhaw here occurs, because at the end of the day, you can sit with the sheriff department, but if you don't have another place to go for your service,
Yeah.
and you don't have a
Monopoly.
you're right, there's no one competing with them for the service we're looking for. I can't see the contract changing much. That doesn't mean you shouldn't try, just, it kind of just makes logical that way. On the other hand, if you're collectively trying to form, so one, I would check to see if Waxhaw is still willing to provide the service. We need to at least create a competition between what Union County is going to offer and maybe what Waxhaw might offer. Stallings, if they're part of Union County already, they're not
Yeah.
going to create any
To
difference.
be fair, and correct me if I'm
Oh,
wrong.
they do?
Stallings does, yeah.
Oh,
They're in police
oh,
department.
it's still part of the, oh, okay.
To be fair, and correct me if I'm wrong, they weren't necessarily ready to go right to Waxhaw yet. They thought that we would have first try who we have and say, can we do something? Can you work with us and stuff? Do we really need this?
Harm in asking.
No.
There's no harm in asking, and then if you just, you know, we're gonna accept the contract, and then going forward, we're just, okay, maybe discussions need to start with a Stallings or wherever we're gonna go. But that, what was the direction they wanted us to come back with? Is just take this to our
Just if we were
board.
interested in continuing a collective conversation with the other municipalities.
That's good.
Y'all are still having those conversations?
I mean, we
We had one meeting. I mean, they
And
called us
it was a while
and
ago,
they
we just
said,
haven't all been back in the same room to have the discussion.
Do
So
you need any direction from us?
just if you guys are interested. And if
we're
you
just
are,
kind
then-
of putting you in the loop of what's
Yeah.
happening and knowing that was, I think, was gonna be discussed as part of the budget item as we're going through our budget. Do we even have
I don't
it?
think it hurts to talk, but.
And do you all want me to check with Waxhaw in the meantime, just to
I
see? if
would.
it's- Okay.
I'd like to know what their cost per officer is if they were to sub it out,
Mm-hmm.
sub he or she out.
Yeah, because we're paying 100,000. I don't think Ed's making that.
He's not.
No.
I mean,
So,
we pay
That's
for the
part
car
of
and
his car
his.
and
Yeah.
insurance.
no, I get that. I'm just saying.
Retirement is
it's-
huge.
The what?
The retirement.
Pensions, yeah.
But again, there's turnkey products out there right now that we could at least talk to. That, you know,
You drive around, you see people are utilizing other options.
I'll check with Waxhaw and check on that.
I would check with Stallings too. Stallings, sorry.
Well, Stallings still Union County.
Yeah, that's okay, so it's Waxhaw.
Well, why, Waxahaw's their own police department.
So is Stallings.
So it's Stallings.
Stallings?
Yeah,
I thought they were Union County.
uh-uh.
Matthews is their own police department.
So is Stallings.
Stallings?
They've had it for years.
Stallings is in Union County. I thought they were.
They have their own police department.
They have their own police department.
Yeah.
Stallings has?
Oh, but
Just like
Say it again.
97.
Waxhaw,
Stallings has
Waxahaw's
their
Union
own-
County too, isn't it?
They have their own police department.
I know,
They're
but
in
that-
Union County. but
That's
have
what I
their own
mean.
police
They still
department.
pay Union County tax.
Yes.
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 So let's
Wingate
not get
has their
that
own police
confused. Stallings is
department.
still
Wingate does
in
have
Union County
Waxhaw,
paying a Union County
Stallings.
tax.
It's gotta be smarter
They
than
just
that.
have their own police department.
Someone's-
And probably a tax rate of 30 cents, somewhere similar to
Yeah, I
Waxhaw.
don't know what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as
So
high,
to be
but
clear,
Wingate's is high.
it is still Union County. It's just they have their
Taxes.
own.
Oh, I thought
That's
Stallings
right.
Stallings
Yeah,
had
Monroe
like
has their own.
15 Union County sheriffs.
What?
I thought Stallings had like They contract.
Indian Trail.
Oh, Indian Trail.
Indian Trail
Okay,
does, yes.
You're right, that's-
I was mixing the two up. too.
Yeah.
So can't we have a multi-municipality
He's like,
Pump
I
shaker.
promise.
We could try that, right? I mean, I don't know what the legalities are, but
Tri-City,
Mutual aid service.
Tri-City Police Department.
Yeah.
They have some, I mean, down here they do some, I mean, again, I'm going back to New York where I come from, but the county police, like I work with the county police, the villages had, you know, a lot of villages had their own police departments. They paid a headquarters tax, what we call the headquarters tax, and they didn't pay a district tax because they had their own uniform patrol. They didn't have detectives, so if they needed homicide or narcotics or something, they used the county detectives. So they paid a county tax, you know, a county tax for the detectives, but they didn't pay tax on the uniform portion of the police department because they already had their own uniform patrol.
Did they get to utilize their dispatch?
Yeah, but, but I'm saying, but when I talked to Manager Waxer a couple of years ago, I said, you guys, he said, no, he said, we pay, I said, you have your own patrol and you still pay for Union County, you don't just pay for the detective in case you need a detective, you're paying actually for their patrol also? He
you
said, yeah.
do? They still pay for that on top of that?
Well, I mean, we're double dipping now. I mean, our taxes
Yeah,
pay
that's true.
for the sheriff and then we're paying for a sheriff, so.
True.
Part of
We're
it.
basically paying it twice. I know,
Anyway,
that's-
so
that's-
I think,
that's the rub
I think
there.
the, at the end of this, unless somebody else has any more to put in, that we go back to them and say, look,
We're
our
gonna
council is
keep
very
talking.
open to
Okay.
wherever
Is
this
everybody good
leads,
with
and if you wanna have Kim and I go, or if you're being an officer, you may wanna chime
And
in.
it
and-
doesn't, I mean, you know, the more people, you know, obviously not at the
I
same
don't think
time,
talking
but.
never hurts, you know.
Okay, all right.
Well, when you get closer to something that looks, you know, firm, like, you know, something that could work, or,
Yeah.
then we can bring it to
Well,
us.
obviously, that's come back to it.
Or we have a group meeting, we can have joint meetings with the other.
Are they planning to come to any of our meetings?
Union County?
Yeah, Sheriff's Department.
They wanted to, and I told them that I would go back and relay the information, but if y'all want to hear their presentation.
I mean, I don't,
I mean, it's basically, that's what they're gonna tell you. is
It's the
they're
same
gonna
thing,
show you
that-
numbers and
yeah.
I
show
don't think
you.
we need to.
Okay.
I'm with Ken.
We're all good with that? Okay. Next up on the agenda is new business item D, discussion of calendar revision. Kim, so we were looking
Okay.
at the calendar, or Kim was.
She had only requested to move the June 6th meeting to June 4th, but you said you had a conflict with another one?
Just got a text from my wife, said she just paid for China flight, so I guess yes.
Yes, we did.
Now I do. I will be gone on the 9th of July.
Okay, so do y'all wanna,
And that's, I don't have to be here. I mean, you guys can still carry on with whatever the agenda is. So I'm not saying come July 9th. Nick, you're back in town. Are you still going on your trip this year?
I'm not gonna, certainly not gonna be going as long, and I'm not sure
Okay,
exactly
okay.
everything on my maintenance schedule.
Okay, so July 9th is the only thing, and if you guys can't change it, I'm fine with it. You guys have the meeting, and you'll just have to table, or if it goes to a 2-2 vote on whatever, it'll just have to be brought up back again.
was everyone okay with June 4th?
Oh, sorry, June 4th,
Instead of June 6th.
I got lost. June 4th, what was the change, just to the 6th, did you say?
From the
From the
6th to the 4th.
Oh, 6th to the 4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bless you.
At this point, I think I'm open, so
I
yes.
look fine.
I'm good then.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't even have it on the right date
And
anyway.
if we do agree to that, you'll send that little blurb out that we can just attach to our
Oh,
thing.
I'll resend the
Okay.
So-
calendar.
We'll make a motion then to move the June 6th meeting to June 4th.
Okay.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Motion passes, so.
All right, so Joe, when are you leaving? Do you
Um,
really want to announce that? But why don't announce that. Pick a date that would work better for you instead of the 9th, and then, now, keep in mind that we've got a work session on the 27th of June.
Hold on one sec.
Sorry, Barbie.
So you're saying July, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Does anyone know what the school schedule is for the
Yeah.
4th?
But
July 6th or June 6th is the last.
June 6th is the last day.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm struggling with the first week because of other commitments, but,
Well, it's also July 4th, so.
yeah. And I know, so the last meeting we have is June 27th,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so we have that meeting.
That's
which
the
will be,
work
it's
session.
gonna be a potential challenge, but I've worked that out with my wife, so we're really,
What's the objective again? I'm not sure if I.
The meeting July 9th. change.
July
Okay,
9th, I
change
just
July
am not
9th?
gonna
Oh.
be here. I mean, I'm
Okay.
gone for a fairly,
July.
What's,
Do we have 2 meetings in July?
yes.
The 25th and the 9th.
so the.
Is that, we're planning on passing the budget before that
Yes.
date, right?
May.
Okay,
We have to,
so
it has to be passed before the 31st.
May 14th.
how far away from that date do you need, Joe, do you need it a week away or like?
From, oh no, I'll be here for the June meetings
Oh.
and stuff. I'm gonna be here, we have to
On
be
here,
July
here.
9th.
on here, we're adopting the
Switch.
budget May 14th.
But I'm saying,
Yeah.
do you need to move it like that whole
Well, it was
week
May
he's gone, or
14th.
is he gone?
Yeah, we're doing an early budget by May 14th. We're gonna have the
14th.
budget done.
Do y'all want to just try to have one meeting in July and see how it works?
And call for a special if you need it.
That's
Just
fine,
a
just keep
thought.
it on the 25th.
I mean, without going into specifics on my dates when I'll be
I'm
gone.
nervous about canceling any meeting right now.
It's,
Unless we move the 25th to like the 15th week sometime in there?
What's it, 14th, 15th?
So drop the work session and just move the regular meeting to like the week of the 15th? Is that what you're saying?
and later in the week would be better.
You mean the planning board meetings that night, you mean on the same Tuesday?
I mean, just that weekend in
Or
general.
just that week, yeah?
Or
Which is
or
really
why don't you
looking
do
like the
it
18th.
Tuesday, the 23rd at 6:30, and then just cancel the 25th?
That's fine with me.
Well, we can bring it back up if you give me some dates and then I can go back and confirm. But I was gonna text my wife right now to see if she could respond to what are the dates were actually gone. And I could say yes or
Okay.
no.
All right, so why don't we stick a pin in this one until the work session?
Pin in what date?
I don't care, it doesn't matter.
23rd?
The 23rd,
Of July?
July. So move the 9th
just
to the
pin it.
23rd and not have the 25th.
Okay.
So I'm fine either the week before that, the 15th to the 19th.
July
or the 22nd,
23rd is much
26th.
better.
What'd you say?
Yeah, it's July 23rd is much better that week.
Okay.
Yep, I will I see myself here, is what I have, just because I was gonna be here for the 25th.
Okay.
So we moved the 25th to the 23rd and strike the 9th. And again, you guys can still have the 9th meeting. The only thing that doesn't get accomplished is if you run into gridlock on an item and you're all here. So I'm not saying to cancel the meeting, I'm just announcing that I won't be at that meeting.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's, I don't know, but so many, especially, I don't know what's going on with Village Hall, where we're moving, that's what I'm concerned about, is if there are things going on at that period, during that period, that need to be moved on,
I have a revised schedule and we shouldn't be into July.
no?
Joe's saying he's okay as long, but if we tie, we tie. And
It's not gonna matter. You can always
Yeah.
bring it back up. It just goes
Yeah.
through as a non, but you can always bring the motion back up if there's something that,
Well, that's
I
fine.
would just
recommend we
leave it
don't put
until-
anything
I
on
mean,
there
if
if
it-
possible.
we need to have a Rodney King movement where we can all get along, right?
Well, and if something comes up
Statements.
that's on that agenda that we're not all comfortable with, then change it then, or, I don't know, that's my thought, just leave it if it's not broke.
Okay, I mean, Joe, if you're fine with it.
I'm absolutely fine with that. I'm just announcing that I will not be at this one of all the ones
Okay.
that I was looking at. And then we are changing to the 4th, right?
That's okay with
But we're gonna
everybody.
keep July the 9th.
So we're not changing any.
We're not changing anything in July. Okay.
And you'll have the 25th too, which I'll be at that
Oh,
one.
we're having the 25th? I thought we changed the 25th to the 23rd.
No.
Well, no,
Leave it
because we're
alone.
we were trying to make one meeting, so we basically have the 9th and the 25th. Correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. So really no changes. I'm just,
June 4th.
Except June
Just
fourth.
June 6th to June
That's
4th.
okay.
And then the last
Yep.
amendment I wanted to bring up since we were on here, because we talked about this at one point, I think, was moving the work session time later. We were talking about that with Councilman Dispensary, whether 10 o'clock was still
No.
feasible,
That's totally fine.
whether we wanted to move it further into the afternoon.
Yeah, I mean, 10's a little rough lately for me getting up. I don't get up at 10 that early anymore.
Yeah, when you're not going to bed at 6:30.
I mean, we usually have it at 5. I don't know if we want to have it at 5. Maybe.
I mean, Thursday nights across the board, year round, I have sports practices, so I won't, I mean,
I'm saying, could we move it to noon? Is that-
I mean, noon, but then I gotta be done by 2.
well, they're just work sessions. They're supposed to be
Okay.
discussion and.
I mean, that's
you know,
fine.
they're hard, you know,
11?
just,
Is 11 better?
Yeah, 11's better. Yeah, we can do
12?
11.
11:30? We have 2.5 hours?
We can do 11. Let's try
11?
Okay, so we're gonna move the time? Okay.
That's fine.
So do you want to make a motion to move the time?
Sure, make a motion to move the work session times from 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
On the regular meeting schedule, right?
The work session.
Work
Yeah,
session.
the work
Yeah.
session.
work session
But I
only,
mean, you're gonna change the whole schedule.
Whole schedule.
and then send us out a new
Yeah.
update, okay. Work sessions. And then we'll just try and keep them to 2 hours.
I'll be done by 2.
Or maybe talk to the bus and have them drop your son off here.
To 11 a.m.
Could
right?
you, yeah, AM. Yeah, not PM, Barbie.
So,
AM.
We're moving 10 to 11. You okay with that, Robert? Work session meetings go from 10 to 11 o'clock.
Sure. We start at 11.
Start at
Yeah.
Not just an hour.
AM,
AM.
Instead of
Yeah,
starting
we-
at 10.
We
start
talked
at
about
11.
this
Okay.
last time, right?
okay. Um,
Good?
Yep.
Make anything
But we're
else?
still on work sessions or that, just talking discussions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
With a
all
hard
right.
stop.
So
at
we're all
2.
good with all the calendar changes and stuff? And next up, we have new business E, budget agenda amendment slash maybe talking about legal primaries or things, so that's where we're at. Who has this one?
What's that?
Let's take it. We started. So basically,
Is that what this is?
yes.
You want me to pass this?
Oh, yeah,
on?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh,
There's a bunch of amendments coming around.
I don't know. Who needs to-
I haven't.
Do you have one? Oh, do you
I don't have one
have
of those.
Sorry, it's the last
I
one.
don't have it.
one? Sorry, I wasn't sure where they were.
Oh, here, just
Just
pass
pass
them
it
on.
down.
Just pass them on.
You have one?
That way you have to walk all the way around.
So if you look at, and this is a estimate, we could need more by the end of the year based on trends. I don't know. This is a good estimate to at least last for the next couple of months. I can't tell you without the attorney giving me some opinion as to how much she thinks it's gonna be. If you look at the top, the professional services amount that I'm requesting is $50,000. So it basically goes from a total of 137 to 187. I'm not sure. I know we had 80, I'm sorry, yes, that's probably right. Professional services includes attorney, AMT, not AMT, but some other professional services that we utilize, like the COG contract for their survey is in here. There's some other things that are in here. I had to pull out our budget to actually look at the individual items. The law attorney amounts were at the bottom as far as professional services. Attorney on call is asking again for 50, so we're going from 80 to 130. The original budget was at 50. If you recall, I did a budget amendment not too long ago for I'm sorry, the original budget was at 30. I did a budget amendment not too long ago for 50. And then I'm asking for another 50 now, which basically brings it to a total of 130 by the end of the year, if that's the total that we need. We had originally moved 30 back in December into this line item, but I had originally told y'all it was for planning purposes. So I didn't want to spend that without telling you that I would be using that for another purpose, which is where you see that 30 in the bottom. It changes, the reason basically changed as to why we were pulling it. So essentially what I'm pulling is 20,000 from fund balance, which you see at the bottom, and I'm taking that 30,000 that's already there and just repurposing it for a different use.
So that's this 50 here.
Total is 50. The total is 50, but only 20 of it's coming from fund balance.
Okay.
30 of it, it's still 50,000, but 30 of it was appropriated in December for planning purposes. So I'm using that 30 for.
And that's why I was emailing, it was like, it was confusing to me when you were saying you're only asking technically for X, but really it's an additional 50,000 in attorney fees.
Correct.
How much did you say we spent last month?
25,000.
When was that last? So our original annual budget was for 30,000, and we did a budget amendment for 50.
Correct.
How long ago was that?
September.
It's in the fall, yeah. Sounds about right, yeah.
It was,
I think it was September.
September 27th, I think.
Is it open session to ask about a projection?
I have no idea. I mean, we're waiting on a ruling. I think the results of that ruling are going to be extremely telling and what it could be. But until we get that ruling, I'm taking a stab in the dark.
I was surprised when you said the 25, because I know we had done a projection, you had done a projection. You guys worked on one, and it was like $4,000, I thought.
$4,000?
Yeah. Going forward, it was like $4,000 a month.
Oh, that was for general services, for just regular, like, I think we budget around 3,000 for general
It's
services.
usually between 3 and 4. Yeah,
So
that's
I budgeted-
non-lawsuit related, non-litigation matters.
3 a month on the high end, general services.
Do we have a number on what we spent on litigation and what actually the portion, what number is actually the litigation?
I'd have to pull the bills and look. I crunched some numbers not too long ago, and I think it was part of, I may have actually included that in one of the emails that I'd sent to you all. But if you estimate initially, and I'll pull it up as I'm trying to talk, but if you estimate we had budgeted 30,000 initially, I don't know.
That was for litigation or just?
No, that would have just been for general services.
General services.
Because we weren't,
Let me pull it up.
we
'cause I
weren't
don't
paying
want to
for
take it wrong.
litigation. That, the one case we had at the time of a new budget was covered by insurance. Right?
The Orndorff suit, yeah.
Yeah. That was, so we weren't paying for that.
I'm trying to look it up, so it might
And-
take
and
me a
just-
second.
And again, I'm throwing another question, but our contract with Melanie, I guess, for council meetings, general, an hour and a half, or we each get a week, whatever. What is that total? I mean, what is that, like
Between 3 and 4,
a month?
yeah,
3,000 or 4,000 a month?
I think.
So
Yeah.
Well, the budget was
36
for
to-
30, so at the beginning of the fiscal year, was it, what is that, 2,800 a month, 2,500?
I mean, there might have been some $2,000 months, I don't know.
Let me-
So at one time, it was 30,000 for the year divided by 12,
That's right, yeah. 2,500.
2,500.
Some months maybe more, some maybe less. But
So this year we went from 30,000 to 130,000?
that's what we're anticipating, yes.
And that, you said that should get us through 2 months.
If we have a month like we did last month, that's 2 months.
And we're only in February.
And professional services on top there, 50 to 137, 825 to 187, 825, that's
That's
not including attorney fees.
It is, yes.
So
that's
there's more
total.
attorney's fees included in that also?
No, hang on one second, I can tell you what's in that line item, because there's other things in there.
Is that what this other attachment was?
This is, I'll tell you, that's the treasurer. So in our professional services line item, we have the auditor, the codification of ordinances, our computer guy, tax bills, which is just the
Did you say codification?
yes. And then planner consultant, which is what I had just originally discussed just a little while ago. Originally, we had, looks like we budgeted 50,000. So that's, and 30 of that would have been the attorney, so the rest of the 20 would have been those other things that I just mentioned. It's all coming out of the same line item.
So it used to be 30 plus 20 for a total of 50?
This says 5,425, but that's a draft, so we may have pulled $400 out of that.
Yeah.
But the second one here, the 50 is the same 30? That's what I'm just trying to...
Say that one more time.
With the word that says professional services, attorney fees, on-call services, then it says 50 to, and then it goes from 80 to 130.
So if you see where it says 50 on that first one, originally it was 30.
Right, this
The
is-
original amount was 30. And then I did a budget amendment for 50, where 80 comes from.
Right, so that brought it up to 80.
And then if you approve this 50, it totals 130.
Right, but now the one above it where it says professional services amount, first says 50, then it says 137,825, and then 187,825. There's,
That's the total.
That's a
so if there's no
50,000.
attorney's fees in that?
That includes
Yes.
attorney fees.
That includes
Yeah.
the 130 from here?
Yep,
Okay, but the 130 is just attorney's fees?
that's correct.
That's breaking, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's broken down at the bottom.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
the top's like the big one, and then the bottom is the sub-accounts.
So essentially, we're $70,000 off from what we projected at the beginning of, at the budget last year.
100,000.
It's 100, yeah.
100?
Because I've already done a $50,000
Right.
amendment, and I'm asking for another 50, so it's 100.
Okay, sorry.
To get us through
At least 2 months.
April?
I'm still looking for that email. It's not very good reception of here.
Was that the answer you were looking for, Nick? How much
Yeah,
probably are 100 grand?
Yeah, that's, at this point, yeah, okay.
Because if the contract was for roughly $2,500 a month, and that's in par with our normal operations, then the overage is the overage.
So the 50,000 you're asking for, then it'd be enough to cover potential ongoing litigation and the monthly normal fees that we pay for the attorney?
I would anticipate for at least 2 months.
And, I mean, if there's a possibility that you won't need that,
Right.
we just don't know.
Yeah.
So why
We
can't
just don't have it now.
Right.
Correct.
So what do we need to survive right now for the monthly expenses for,
$3,000 a month.
so,
Absent litigation expenses.
Right.
You know.
You're talking just general.
I'd like to see the village not paying litigation expenses and only back to the maintenance of $2,500 a month. So my question to you is, she said there's a decision coming through that could change this one way or another. If you need money now, couldn't we just approve what's required for maintenance and then revisit it?
But it's not enough. Because we just got a bill, right? We
We've
haven't
gotta pay
paid it yet.
bills.
I've got enough, the bill that I got Friday,
You have
I
enough
have
to
just
pay.
enough to pay it.
Right,
So anything,
That's what I read, was that
Right.
we're covered today.
right. So what, again, projecting, there's potential depositions coming up that are being required of us and all those different costs that require her to be, so there's gonna be.
6 depositions.
There's gonna be more, cost regardless, so And all we're doing is estimating it, so if we're off again, we'd have to come back and revisit it, but right now, it appears that we're gonna be off. I mean, I'm trusting you with your numbers and stuff, and if you're guesstimating for the next 2 months, we get a ruling one way or the other. If it's in the village's favor, then it's significantly less because we're not spending, but then there's the potential for appeals. And then what that's gonna cost. So it may go away, it may not go away, you know.
If we move it and we don't need it, can we move it back?
But I don't want to give the false impression that I know for sure this is how much it's going to cost, because
No one
I
knows.
understand.
No one knows.
What is the, what proportion of this is being used for legal defense?
that's what I was trying to pull up that email, and I'm having a hard time.
That's what Nick asked. I just assumed it's over the 30K, but she's looking it up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, maybe my apologies, I thought you said litigation.
Oh, yeah, it's the
I
same
wasn't sure.
question. yeah.
Okay.
I had sent an email with those numbers. Just having a hard time.
And not just litigation, but just the defense of litigation? Is that just to be sure that? All right.
That's the only litigation there is defense. We haven't filed any lawsuits. Marvin's not the plaintiff in any lawsuits that I'm aware of.
Well, because I'm assuming that $50,000 appropriation, part of that is to ensure that we've got monthly services covered, right? And
Yeah, I
part
had
of
broken
that is-
out the monthlies.
Like, from what I
So-
understood, the monthly services
So
were
normally,
$2,500.
if I may say this, and this is why the insurance hasn't kicked in,
Here it is.
we pay $1,000 deductible to be insured for this. We approached the insurance company to pay the deductible on that, and they, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason they did not cover this is because there was no financial ask.
There wasn't a
There's
claim.
no financial aspect.
There's no claim for monetary
There's no
damages,
claim for
only
monetary
attorney's fees,
damages.
and our insurance policy does not cover attorney's fees.
So the risk is lower and they don't cover it?
It's
That's
all
what we're
based on
told,
their
which
policy.
I would argue
Fees.
that we need to revisit
It's
the
not fair.
insurance
It's not the
company,
only
because
contract.
that's why you pay insurance, to hopefully get covered. But they're suggesting to us, or have told us, and maybe it was Christine they told, but maybe it was in a discussion, that's why it's not being covered. So that's why we're not seeing. So normally, that would be covered under the $1,000 deductible.
So, okay.
Here, I'll send it to you.
Which I have a
Just
beef, quite
counterintuitive,
frankly,
right?
I have a beef with our insurance company that should be covering anytime the village
I
gets
just-
sued. That's what we pay insurance for. I think that's how it's worked,
That's how it's supposed to work.
and Christina, I don't know if you shared that with me or if it was, which one of you shared that
I'm
with me
sorry, I
about?
wasn't listening.
No, about how the insurance and why hasn't the insurance kicked in, because we were getting so.
Yeah, I mean, we have a denial letter from them I can send out again, and it explains it.
No, I
And they
understand,
quote
and
their
I,
policy.
it's.
Oh, I'm not doubting it, I'm just saying it's weird.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Yeah.
So I have the numbers. There was an email that I'd sent on 2/4 that
Was
kind
that
of.
that little spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I have it.
50, it said 55 was spent to date, and then it gave detail. And again, this was as of 2/4, so anything that I've received between now and then I haven't got. But roughly 19,747 was to Cox for, it highlights it there for.
That's as of 131.
131?
Yeah.
Okay. 652 for another lawsuit, just $600 for another lawsuit to Cox. And then 16,000 to another law firm for a lawsuit. And then the rest of that would be just general expenses.
So all lawsuit related, it was 37,340. Right? Is that how I'm reading that?
Lawsuit related 37,340, yes.
Well, something's skewed, because if it's $100,000 over the budget, So it may not be directly, if it's 100 grand over the budget and it's not due to regular maintenance, then it's either, you know, research. I know a lot of research went into the lawsuit stuff, plus these numbers, plus there's got to be something else.
Well, remember, we haven't spent $50,000 yet.
We've already determined that it's already 100 over.
No, it's not. This is at the end of the
Projecting
day.
it to
It's
be.
projected 130. Right now,
After
we're
the
at,
50.
right now, we're at 80.
But didn't you say the current bills total 24?
We've
Correct.
already-
For
You've got
January.
those
Okay,
covered,
so-
right?
But
That's,
those are
I've got
just enough in
those
the
are in
funds.
that 80,
Okay.
yes,
So at least 50% of that is already spoken for.
correct, yes.
Did that answer your question then?
And this 130,000 again is projection on what we're possibly looking at, you know, if the judge's decision doesn't go the right way or our way or whatever. But even at that point, then they could still go further than that.
Absolutely.
I don't have any idea what that could be. What that could, you know.
No, and we've been pretty conservative in just responding to and not
Right.
scheduling a lot of our own stuff.
So I don't know when I should interpret into, just tell you what my concerns are. And I'm only speaking as a council person, I have to be really clear about that. Obviously, the expenditures are high. My concern about the expenditures was more related to policy. I feel like a lot moved really quickly during the period that resolution was adopted for legal defenses and so on. And so I wanted to go back and revisit and understand how contracts were being managed and handled and whether they were, like how some of these expenditures, this is difficult for me to do being in the position I'm in, but how some of the expenditures are being approved. And so I was hoping that by reading the resolution and going through the policy, I'd have a better understanding of how that worked. And I guess when I first put this on the agenda as a discussion item, as I mentioned earlier, it didn't have the weight of a pending amendment attached to it. So in and of itself, it feels like the resolution that was passed isn't a weighty enough issue worth looking at, only because, correct me if I'm wrong, so a resolution was passed that would fund defensive village officers, and within that resolution is a number of procedures, and I don't know, to the best of my knowledge, even though the policy was adopted, the resolution was adopted, there seems to be like conflicts or things in here that weren't done. So I'm looking at, and I can go into explain why I'm concerned about that. Do we have the policy? Yeah. Maybe that might be a bit easier if everyone takes a look at it.
And Mary, I don't mean to stop you, but is this what you meant by legal services and contracts?
If this is going to be under the amendment, everyone sort of agreed that I should just mush them together because they're kind of related. And I'll try to keep it brief. Like I said, this has kind of got muddled because I thought at first it would just be general questions and now it's mixed with money, actual expenditure, but probably something I think we need to look at.
Or do we want to stay with the budget ordinance first before we move on?
I think it's related, and then I'll make my point, and then everyone can kind of move on and discuss it, but I feel like I need to at least put this on the table, which is, so if you don't mind, take a look at where it says section number 2. It shall be the policy of the village to defend its officers and employees.
You just want us to read quietly?
Yeah, I can read out loud. I think, and let me just say for the record that I'm fine with the general policy, I get that. But what I want to be careful of is that we're not appropriating funds if we have missed some of the stuff that our own policy is requiring. And this paragraph in particular, well, there's a couple, but this one, it says, you know, that the funds, it shall be the policy of the village, defend its officers, employees, in both their official and individual capacities from criminal prosecution for any act done or omission made, any act allegedly done or omission allegedly made. And then here's the important part. When it is determined by the Marvin Village Council that the facts and circumstances giving rise to the charge show that the officer or employee was acting with the course and scope of employment and that he was engaged in good faith, so on and so forth. This sort of alludes to something someone else had mentioned to me, and it feels as if this paragraph at least is saying that these funds should have been sanctioned somehow, or that there should have been some sort of a motion to actively determine that defense was going to be provided.
I'm not aware of any criminal prosecution. What criminal prosecution is pending against any?
No,
Village.
this isn't under criminal, that's a separate section.
You said two.
Two.
I'm reading two.
Criminal prosecution.
Defend its
Criminal
officers, employees, and both their official and for
Okay.
criminal prosecution.
Got it. And so then we need to look at the civil section?
That's number one.
Is it number 3? Oh, no, it's number 1.
One, yeah.
Sorry.
And just so you know, I happen to be listening to the August 9th and around 2 hours and 30 minutes into the second tape, so I can get you kind of close to where it's at when we start talking about it. And Robert, you're questioning the fact that we would be defended and it's a conflict. And I think you had stated that it's allowed because it's good policy to adopt an ordinance. And then you had at one point with the resolution asked to change the verbiage of it, and it was in this.
It was the meeting we did this?
Yes.
Okay.
It was in the August 9th meeting, and it did not pass, and you had argued that the reason for that is that if we did something as a body, I think you argued that, is what I was listening to, we did something as a body, and it happened to be illegal, but we didn't know about it, but it was just a misstep on our part. It wouldn't protect that. It's like saying that we're supposed to know, we're acting as a body, what we think is the right thing to do. So I think it's something in there that as I was listening to it, I just made some notes for myself and stuff, and how you were arguing why the new verbiage that he wanted to add into it was not acceptable into this resolution and stuff. So I can let you know where that is and to clarify that and stuff. So, but
Do you remember what we talked about? It was a long time ago for me.
I know, I just happened to be clicking on, I was looking at I really was going to the August 9th. I saw I didn't have any council comments, and I went to the very end, and I ended up on right in the middle of the discussion about, paying and how are we indemnified as council members. Again, the argument being, if you're a council member and you do something and somebody sues you, you expect either the insurance to kick in or the village to kick in, otherwise nobody would run for office.
Well, see that just, just sticking points, because I've really been trying to understand how all this functions. Even that term, indemnification, I kept hearing that. I think I even used it. And yet, when I went through this, I didn't see the word indemnification anywhere. And so I'm trying to separate issues in terms of like what's actually written and other issues. I don't know where does the term indemnification come from, and maybe I've heard. Nick,
I may have used it loosely in that, but I think there's the expectation that when you are elected as an official and you're sued by a citizen, that if we acted as a body and we took direction from our own council, that we would be expected to be covered, whether it's by the insurance kicking in or if the village is gonna have to defend, you would be expected, because that's, otherwise, if you're relying on individuals to run for office and say, oh, at any given time, if you're sued by someone, that, you know, villages, based on the village, you know, decision, they're gonna cover you, or maybe not cover you and stuff. I don't think you'd have anyone be running for office, quite frankly. And I'm just trying to simplify that.
And I guess that's a discussion and perhaps a worthy theoretical discussion and in general, or a statement even. But I guess what I'm trying to understand is, you know, trying to understand what was passed in August. What, I see that there's sections in here that are sort of saying, okay, well, it's automatically, defense is automatically provided. But we are a very small town with not a lot of resources. And I'm trying to figure out, well, then where's the step for appropriation in here for making sure that the funds are available when something like this is adopted? And then that's layered on top of even the contract issues. Again, I don't even know if I expect an answer. It doesn't even have, the answers don't need to be provided to me. But even in terms of managing, they are still public funds, and so as a steward of public funds, I have to say, even as a taxpayer, I'm kind of curious, who makes the decisions then about how those funds are used, what actions the council is taking and deciding to spend those funds on. It seems odd to me that just automatically the funds would just be thrown at whatever comes at the village. Where's the oversight? Like, who's in charge of managing the oversight of that defense at this point?
So, if I may talk a little bit about what we tried to do when it was a hard pill to swallow, that when we were pursuing an avenue and then the attorneys said to us, it's better if you allow, we'll talk about it openly, you to take that seat, because at that point, that's what we thought the ask was, as a de facto. At that point, if we challenged it the whole time and you ended up winning, then it would really cost the village not only our attorney's fees, but your attorney's fees. But the action that, again, was the hard pill to swallow was, okay, let her sit as a de facto, which stops the attorney's clock. However, what was presented, and we thought it would be dropped, but it wasn't. There is still a lawsuit now against us three, and all we're saying is we're not going to pay for it ourselves, because we, you know, number one, it's an action we took as a body, and we look at these things, and you know, sometimes they're covered by insurance. You can never plan for that. There's nothing in here, but that's kind of where that went, and that's how we decided that. So really, the exposure for us, we looked at it, was the 20 days between July, correct me if I'm wrong, July 10th and the 30th, when we allowed you to take the seat as the de facto and thought it would go away, but it hasn't, and it continues, and all we can do is defend ourselves when we're...
Well, I honestly didn't want to, I really was asking about a policy question. I did offer at least once to settle the case, but that wasn't taken up. So I'll just leave that where it is. What I'm asking, though, is all that ship has sailed. What I'm now talking about is being a steward of the funds. And so regardless of why we're here, what I'm trying to understand is who then is providing oversight of the defense? Is it the administrator? Is it the majority? Is it just, and no offense, I'm just trying to understand, when you hire attorneys, right? Somebody's got, I would imagine, has to be providing that. Someone has to be representing the village, and be in charge of how those funds are spent and on what. And I would like to know from that perspective, separate myself a little bit, because I'm trying to compartmentalize myself, who's making those decisions. When I look at this, I see there's a policy, or there's a line item about, and correct me if I'm reading it wrong, I could have, it was difficult to read parts of it. There's the internal procedures set by village administrator and village attorney.
Where's that at?
That's the last paragraph, 9. Internal procedures for handling liability claims and lawsuits against the village and its officers and employees shall be established by village administrator in consultation with the village's attorney. Contracts and invoices for service shall be subject to the standing policies of the village and must be reviewed and approved by the appropriate departments. So, I mean, again, it's not something I really enjoy talking about, it's not easy, but for example, there's been several motions that have come my way too, right? Who is it that decides when motions should be made, or who's actually actively managing these funds? It doesn't need to be me, but I feel like I don't know who that is. I don't know who it is that's managing this.
Well, I feel like for motions, that's a legal thing, so I'm gonna have to defer to the attorneys. And they need to know when motions need to be made and things like that. It says in here that should be the village administrator in consultation with the village's attorney. I feel like that's what's.
And when you hire an attorney firm to defend you, they're gonna do whatever they need to do to defend what the accusation is, and that's all that they're doing. And it's just unfortunate it's not covered by insurance, but we obviously didn't plan for that, because usually something comes with a financial ask. And
No, but we're getting, and sorry, I don't, just point of information, I just don't want to I feel like that what I'm looking for, or what I'm asking about is really particular to just administration. It's not so much about, but let's put it this way. So there's still a village as an entity, right? The village as an entity is still publicly managing these funds for, in this case, 3 officers. Got that. The policy's been adopted. I understand that too. The policy's there. But in terms of, I'm finding it difficult, again, present company excluded, it's nothing personal at all. I can't imagine another place where we would go to a government and the government would just pick up an attorney, in this case 2, and yet not have the village body providing oversight. And yet right now I don't see that. It's fine that it's not the body providing oversight, but the administrator herself has said, well, I try to stay out of it as much as possible. So I kind of got this feeling that we've handed everything over to attorneys to manage at their discretion. And is that really publicly responsible? That's where I feel like I do have a say.
well, here's where I would argue, and respectfully argue, because I'm not an attorney, I don't play one on TV, or I don't know what the law was. So I can only, and I think you would agree, anytime I have a question that is law related, I always have gone to you, or I have directed staff. If I can't give direction on my own, and if they have a question, I've directed staff to you. So that's why we pay attorneys. They're gonna fight the fight, and we can only fight the fights that come to us. We're not actively pursuing anything. We're just defending. So we're acting on the recommendation, in a sense, of the attorneys, because we're the ones being sued. We're not actively suing anybody.
Well, and Christina says, or our administrator says, that she's staying out of it as much as possible, and I think that that's just internally so, but I think she's being a good steward of the funds and is being very upfront and forthcoming, and has sent multiple emails out letting us know where we are, but working in conjunction with the attorneys. So, I don't.
And I don't know how you write that in a resolution, you
It's in there, it says it.
If
I
it's
think
not,
that's
you're
what's
not
going
finding
on.
what you need. I think we covered
It's
it.
not-
And I feel like I've informed you, we've got, these motions were filed, here they are, everything's on Clio, every document really has been emailed to you. I don't think there's been any surprises prize is, but I don't think you wanted to know get in the weeds of all of the legal issues.
And I haven't got into the weeds. I mean, you've probably sent me multiple emails that I have not looked at all the documents and attachments because I just merely don't have time to administer the
It's a
legal
lot.
side of things. Now, from a financial standpoint, I'm only doing what I was budgetary allowed and, given that permission to do so. So that's where I've really been trying to control it, is just from what's been the budget. Now, from cost of certain motions and all that stuff, there's no way for me to determine any of that. So
No, but we've had conversations, right, when there was a request for more discovery, you didn't comply. And so I said, Christina, this is going to take, I don't know, another 10 hours or so. I've got to do this to comply. And you've said, okay. I don't feel like I'm billing anything in the dark without letting you know what's going on.
No, I mean, but we had a conversation early January or late January about what we anticipated, which is then when I'd sent the email out to them, the first one that had said, this is kind of where we're at, just letting y'all know, giving you a heads up. And then we got another bill in for, more than what we'd anticipated. But I don't know if either one of us
I
would have known.
anticipated once we sent discovery, it would be dismissed. Like, that was my expectation. I thought, here's everything. We haven't done anything wrong. Here it is. And it'd be dismissed. So
I've tried to be as fiscally prudent as I can that's within my control, but I'm not administering the process, if that makes sense, no.
And I know that, and I don't, it's not as if I really have a point in all of it. It's just, these are just things that occurred to me as administratively that I was trying to wrap my head around. And I know it's complicated, but even to that point, when I read this and I realized again how small the village we are and how much onus this puts on an administrator, which is unusual, not even a manager, right? We're just talking about an administrator in conjunction with the attorney. And I'll be honest, I read it and I was somewhat concerned about the amount of responsibility being placed on staff in some of these instances. And it says no reflection on anyone here. I just feel like in retrospect, I don't know that this was really kind of vetted out, and it's a major policy, and I'm not sure that it was. I just think that there's things in here that we should be taking a second look at, I guess.
Are you, and I'll be honest, I'm not following you completely, but let me just take a stab at it.
Sure.
Are you saying you're concerned because in one swoop, and then this is me tying these two things together, we're just giving a $50,000 blank check twice, and trusting the attorney, and don't take offense by this, but for your paycheck, we're authorizing the attorney to guide us in how that $50,000 is spent.
Yes, and I understand that the defense is of 3 people, so of course primarily they would be concerned of it. But I also feel like we also as a body need to be concerned about that, right? And yes, I'm concerned about how this is, I just am concerned about how it's all being managed. Of course I want to just trust the attorney, but by the same token, you can cover your ears now, but there are attorneys who, and I'm not saying this is the case here, but there are attorneys who will prosecute things till the day, for years if they can. And so I guess, let's just imagine that that's the case. Again, trying to separate myself out of it, what administrative holds are there on this, like checks and balances? And I just don't know where they are.
I would think the council is the balance. I mean, we hire an attorney, we have a village attorney, we hire the village attorney, they're our representative, we get sued.
you tell me.
I mean, I'm saying, the attorney then runs the case, basically. If the attorney says, well, we need depositions on this day, we have to get this in by this date, whatever. I mean, she may go to the administrator and say, this is what it is, but if we're still the ones that control the budget, if we say, well, we're not gonna spend another $50,000 on this, so we're not gonna do it. I think ultimately it's us, it's not the administrator. I mean, the administrator can only get the information from the attorney, which the attorney is providing, as the case goes along, and she could maybe relay it to us saying, we're running short, we're gonna have to get money from here. then it's our decision at that point. I mean, I don't see where,
But tell me if I'm wrong,
I mean,
sometimes, I'm
who's-
feeling like a certain degree of discomfort with the idea that the administrator is consistently having to come to the council too, right? And not really knowing where this is going and how long it's gonna,
well, how, I mean, I don't know how the administrator is not an attorney, so how should she second guess what the attorney is saying
Nobody
that
has
they
a
need
crystal ball.
to.
And if, I say, oh, I recommend taking 5 deposition, and the client says, no, I don't have money for that. I mean, family law cases all the time, we don't take depositions because they're extremely expensive and my clients don't have money for it. Like, it's not, there's a ton of things you can do, and there's a lot you can do to control expenses too. So I'm not, like, looking for ways to spend the village's money by
No, no,
any.
but I'm
and
saying
I
as
and
far
I
as-
didn't want you to
So
think
who are
that,
you-
it was just, it's more like an oversight and.
Yeah, but I'm saying as far as
Who do you ask
oversight,
those
I mean-
questions on? That's a perfect
Well,
example.
we haven't, because we haven't done any of that yet, because I know the money's not there. I mean, when we get to that point, if this decision's not favorable, then I'll have to come to the board and have that conversation.
And will you come to the full board?
Mm-hmm.
Because I've only, as you know, I've only recently been receiving documents. This is a separate issue, but I haven't been able to chime in on any of it.
You have my email, and you could have asked for anything the entire time. The administrator has everything. None of these documents are secret.
The point's the same, will you come to the, I'm asking the question, will you come to the full board, all, including me?
Yeah,
Okay, because there was a subcommittee before,
there was.
which I wasn't party to.
Correct.
So does the subcommittee still exist?
It hasn't disbanded, but it hasn't met.
So will you go to that subcommittee and ask for the funds?
I don't think the
Or make
subcommittee can
decisions.
authorize funds. Council has to authorize funds.
Right.
That's also-
So what we're doing now, we're authorizing funds before the whole board. So it's the same
But how the funds are
process.
spent,
Right. That's,
that's is what we're talking about. isn't it?
Right. Can we go back to the resolution for 1 minute?
Well,
mean-
Can I
Well,
could you answer my
yeah.
Oh,
question
okay,
first?
okay.
So when it comes to like, your example, 5 depositions, do you go to the legal subcommittee or you go to all council?
I mean, it hasn't come up because I haven't done anything to try to spend any money. I've just been trying to put out fires and
well,
defend
that's not
it.
entirely true. There have been motions and there's been discoveries and other things. I'm not saying that you
Motions to
shouldn't.
end the case.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm just saying that there are decisions that are made along the way, right?
I mean, I don't know, again, legal decisions, I think we have to leave that up to the attorney. I mean, she's guiding us, or the attorney is, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, like Joe said, I don't play one on TV, I don't profess to be an attorney, so I mean, if the attorney says that we need to file this affidavit, or we need to file this deposition by a certain date or whatever, I mean, we can decide if she says, well, it's gonna cost us $10,000, we can decide we don't wanna pay the $10,000, but I don't think we can be running her legal, running the legal thing, because we're not, I wouldn't be comfortable with that,
Like obviously I have an attorney, and before they decide to go forward, and I'm not even, like I said, this is all new to me too, so I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. But before my attorneys move forward with anything, even if they strongly advise it or they have it written, which is sometimes the case, they still never fail to come and let me know, hey, this is what we think the next steps are, or this is where we think there's an option. And every step of the way, I'm a joint partner in those decisions and processes. Obviously, that's not what I'm saying for me, but it feels like the board or some entity has to be, like, who is it that's conferring with you all along the way? I'm just curious. Like, where is that happening? Does that make sense, Robert? Is that kind of the same idea?
Oh, my head's gonna explode. I'm not really not grasping. There's a couple pieces I grasped. That's why I asked the questions I did, but I get what you're saying. Where's the oversight? We're authorizing a $50,000 check for legal services. But as a council, we won't meet again really to talk about how the funds are spent. That's all I'm getting out of what you said and what I read here. So I'm not sure what the answer is.
I hear what you say, like normally, right, a family law client might pay $10,000-$50,000. And then they get a bill every month and they see how much is left. And before you schedule something, you have a conversation about it.
Right.
But I'm here 1 meeting a month, right? I don't know, I mean, I'm happy to, have more communication with you all if you think that's needed, but it's a different situation when you're constantly just having to respond to things and being noticed for hearing than, you know, your name's on the calendar, you gotta show up. You can't tell the judge, oh, my client didn't want me to come today.
For me, it's a little weird as a contractor, because I would love it if a customer just said, here's the money, make it happen. When you run out, come talk to me. But I'm in a different world. That's part of the reason I struggle with this. I get what you're saying, or what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm not 100% clear myself out of it. I'm just trying to figure out where the lines are, and it gets a little bit dizzying. Yeah.
Whatever you guys want to discuss, I'm not sure
Well,
where to go with it.
I think we end up playing more defense than anything else as things come to us. It's things, and I think to her point, that any motions that she's taken on herself is to end it or to curtail or somehow end the case, which is what we want. I mean, I wish a decision was made on all of this. I mean, because of the judge now, he's got a docket full of last week, and we weren't sure even when he was going to give a decision for any of it. So, you know, what happens after that? If it's in our favor, great for us. If it's not, then at that point, it's like, okay, what are the options? And then but you know, again, there's not a financial ask, so that's why we're not being covered. We certainly, me going into the insurance issue with our insurance company, I just assumed that we're going to be covered on any time we have legal challenges. And this caveat of, oh, we're not going to cover this because they're just asking
I learned something new.
for legal fees. I mean, I would suggest a resolution that we go back to as a board, we go back to our insurance
that's a great
company.
idea.
What's that?
I think that's a great idea.
If we go back to our board and say, and I'm sorry, go back to the board and have a resolution saying that this should be paid for that's why we pay insurance. So the village isn't spending all that money. But it was them telling us. It's like, what do they say about insurance companies? They're in business not to pay out claims. I mean, you know, let's face it, there's gonna be some caveat there. I remember one, it was my cousin was involved in it, and it was a floodplain, and they said, well, the water did not reach the roof. So because of that, he was not covered with flood insurance. Makes a little bit, you know, because it didn't reach the roof line. They showed where the roof line was, and he's like, you know, and all along he's thinking he had the proper insurance. I thought we had the proper insurance. My next discussion I think we could propose, I talk about it at a work session, is come up with a resolution where we go back to this council saying, look, this is something that we feel we pay insurance for, and it's shared insurance, by the way. That insurance, just because we have this claim doesn't mean we're going to get next year. In fact, we confirmed that, I think, with Chris when she was the acting administrator, that if we run into crazy lawsuits, and we get a lot, it doesn't affect our, premium, because it's shared amongst numerous, it's through COG, is it not?
It's the league.
The league, I'm
League of
sorry.
Municipalities.
So the league looks at it as a whole big picture and how many lawsuits they bring to. So again, we're paying the thing, but we're not paying things. So that's as we can see, something like this and how much it can affect this town. It can bury us, quite frankly.
I'm gonna go home and read all my insurance policies.
Can you do that resolution? I mean, would that be the form? I mean, I know this is totally not on the topic, but is that, I guess it kind of is, but is that the right step to take to try to get insurance to pay for something?
I mean, I think that's a good step to get them to take another look at it.
Okay.
Whether, you know, are they gonna change their mind? I don't-
Is there an
I don't
appeal
know.
process?
Yeah, last thing we need is to get in litigation
I don't
with
know.
our insurance company saying you should pay this and stuff. I mean, that's just more litigation.
No, I don't want to do that.
But if the board is all agreeable and we say, look, this shouldn't be a burden on the community because, you know, I mean, just because there's some sort of loophole, and we're certainly going to be looking for it next time we pay that insurance bill, is it, well, wait a minute, what's covered here?
Just out of curiosity, was that just an insurance policy through the league or? Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, I had no idea. So I learned something new.
In regards to the resolution, I mean, there's a state statute that, 160A, 167, which is what this was based off of, that allows this to happen, that you don't even have to have a resolution to do what we're doing.
Right.
I mean, it's always a good idea to do it, but.
Yeah, that's not a question. I read through it too. I saw that. And to be honest, the policy goes, even is more stringent than the actual statute, I think, in certain spots. So it's not so much having it, the policy, and that's why this has been difficult to bring up, because it's not that.
No, I
It's
hear
just
you, the
like
oversight.
Trying to understand,
Right.
yeah, exactly. Just the day-to-day because we are small, right? I can see in a large company where you're like, well, yeah, the team of attorneys are managing this, and then there's got their legal department or whatever. But here, and of course, I know we're not all meeting as a group, so I'm like, as long as somebody is kind of watching this and looking over it, but I just don't know who that entity is. It sounded like it was the legal subcommittee, but I haven't seen that meet, so I just want to be sure that I've understood some of that, that's all.
So to kind of move things forward with my suggestion, I would maybe ask for a motion, because we can do that now. We're talking about a budget amendment to create some sort of, resolution by the whole board to go back to that insurance company specifically and kind of plead our case, if you will, because it has become what I would say, these things as we go on, suing for whatever reason we just expect to be covered by that. And because they didn't, they have to know that attorney's fees can get up into the crazy numbers too. And I would ask, or I'm going to ask to make a motion for a resolution to have our attorneys revisit or write up a resolution to revisit, having them take a second look or to ask for compensation.
The
for it.
insurance company.
Yep, insurance company.
Is it basically like a challenge? If
It's a
my
statement that we're.
Insurance company said, no, I challenge before I hire an attorney to go after them.
I challenged before, at the conference, because I'm on the board, and so there was, the Durham city attorney there, all of them, and all of them have the league, and some of the people from the league were there, and I was like begging. I used anything I could to get them involved, because I didn't want to do it.
So anytime someone sues us, we have to hope they're at least asking for $1.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy.
Okay, so you've got a motion on the table to have the village attorney do a resolution to go back to the insurance company or do
For
a
us to
resolution.
approve by the work session, if we can, I assume you'll send it out.
Yeah.
Would that be a proper?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. This way it's,
Right.
it's maybe something that you're looking for, where there's some direction to how funds get spent or how they get paid, if you will. That would be a way to resolve that and
Yeah.
go from there. So, motion's on the table, further discussion.
Oh, could you repeat the motion?
For Melanie to draft a resolution to go back to the insurance company that has refused our case, if you will, our what? Claims that they're refusing it to revisit. They use some strong language that we're trying to avoid litigation with, obviously. We're trying to avoid litigation with our own insurance company. We don't want to go down there, but all we can do is ask, and if the board is behind this, because this is it's getting to be out of hand. We missed it by potentially $100,000.
How much
It's a
would a
big deal.
resolution cost us? And is it more powerful than a phone call?
Well, a phone call is just me. I think if it's the entire board, if it's a unanimous decision, I think that's more powerful.
What kind of money are we talking about?
15, 20, 30 minutes, I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's gonna take me long to draft a resolution.
We just had a lengthy conversation about wanting to know where the money goes, so I have to ask.
Right. I haven't drafted this specific resolution, but I don't anticipate it would take more than an hour.
And then if you could, at that point, if she could get it to us through you, or if you could send it out where we can have it approved, where we can take direction on that by, I mean, everyone needs to approve it, right?
Yeah, we'll have to read it
Right,
and
and
vote on it.
Vote on it again.
And you wanna do
okay,
that at the
so-
work session?
If
Yes.
you can.
And do you need to be here for that work session?
I think so.
Okay, because all we're doing is voting on it. Okay, all right.
We can direct.
Does that help you,
questions
Robert,
beforehand.
with it? Not that
Yeah,
was that clear or
I felt
concise?
I've been
Okay.
answered, I appreciate it.
Okay, further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes unanimously. So back to what this needs to be taken care of. I mean, it is what it is right now. And we're hoping it doesn't get to that, and if I'm hearing that we can move those funds back to the appropriate things, if we get a good verdict and things stop, then I think it makes sense to take action on it now, so we're not coming back every 2 weeks or every month and addressing this issue. This puts us out 2 months. Hopefully, we're having a
Hopefully
decision
further
within
than
the
that.
next week or so, but we
Further
don't
than
know. So, does someone want to put a motion on that to, for the ordinance OR? Do you want to?
I'll do it. I'll
Okay.
make a motion to approve ordinance OR-2019-02-01 and ordinance to amend the general fund budget ordinance. Or is anything else?
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
I'm a nay.
Nay and nay?
Nay.
Okay. And I would be, that's 2 in the affirmative and 2 in the negative, and I will be the tiebreaker and say, yes, we'll.
Have to be on the next agenda though, because you need 2/3 the first time it's introduced. Next
Okay.
meeting, you would need a simple majority.
Okay, so add that to the agenda for the work session, or
Wherever y'all want to put it.
Has to go through two, need the money, right? So,
you're gonna need the money, so, yeah, do it at the work session.
is everybody okay with putting it on the work session?
Okay. All right, next up we have Village Hall.
Have a lot.
All right, you have 35 minutes.
For Village Hall?
But we still have a closed session, right?
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
35 minutes to 9:30.
I'm just gonna start passing out a bunch of stuff, so. Do we still need to have the planner? Oh.
Probably.
Unless you want to sit through
Unless you
this.
want to stay. Did you guys get these on that side? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
I just wanna make sure you get it, because you were leaving me out, so
Did you say
it's like, quit throwing paper at
I
me.
did, but all we have is Village left.
So I'm gonna try to
We have
go
closed
through
session.
real
I said
fast.
hard stop on the regular meeting,
Oh,
closed
that's-
session at
9:30, yeah.
9:30.
35 minutes to 9:30, and then we've got
See, I
closed.
had my mindset for 9:30.
Oh.
I'm with you,
Sorry.
man, I'll do that all day long.
Christina talks fast. Or Christina
this
will
what
talk
we-
fast.
A lot of this stuff you probably don't need, I'm just giving it to you just so you have it. So if you look at the Village Hall timeline, I've updated that with kind of where we're at and where we're going. Basically, if you just, I mean, you can go through all the detail if you want to, but at the end of the day, we've only really pushed it back a couple of weeks, and that's primarily been to the result of the architect just now getting back to me here recently and then having to prepare for the budget retreat last week. So I'm not gonna go through the timeline unless y'all really want me to.
No.
Okay. The main sheet is that I
We're 2
need,
weeks behind, that's all we need to know. right?
roughly, yes.
Are there any other major changes, like the policy or anything, or you just kind of?
No, there's one major thing that I need to talk about that could impact the timeline, but I think it's a non-issue. So if you look at the little,
Good night.
this sheet right here that I've typed up, just of action items that are needed, just a one pager.
Okay.
This is pretty much all the action that I need from you all. The first thing is the detail sheet revision. Basically what that means is, in the original plans that were approved, there's detail sheets that are in the back, and basically there's a detail sheet for the elevation, the facade. There's 2 detail sheets that he's going to have to change to basically reflect what those alternates were. The white option and then the stone option. So he's just changing 2 detail sheets so that the bidder could actually bid specs on those 2 options. That's gonna cost around $1,500 to do so. So I'm going to go into a contract amendment to revise that if y'all are okay with that amount.
Is that really because we just couldn't make a decision, or we wanted a
Yes.
choice of?
You wanted the choice.
And we have the original, so regardless, if we didn't want the original, we have to do this, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's true, okay.
At the end,
I think it came down to 2 reasons. One was 2 or 3 of us like one veneer, 2 of us like another veneer. And the other side is, all right, what do those veneers cost?
that's right. So what he's saying is you'll have, at the end of the day, you'll have 3 options. The original plan, as we've already looked at, the white house,
Okay,
the stone house.
okay.
So then y'all can decide which one you want based on the cost of those 3.
So, I mentioned this today, I don't know if I'm overcomplicating it or not, so stop me if I am.
Stop.
But
I didn't say
he's going to
that.
stop me.
I didn't say that.
No, I was gonna say, at this point, everyone's comfortable with the White House, right? I mean, do we need to have the stone option on there?
You and Nick like the stone, I think the 3 of us like the white.
We're still gonna have to pay the $1,500 because we don't want the original, correct?
If we told him we are 100% sure on that White House, he can change all the plans right now today based on the white ones, and then we don't have to go back and do other changes.
So we don't have to pay the $1,500.
You would still have to pay some of it, but probably not $1,500.
So
You
I
would
think-
probably save $1,500 because if you see number 2, detail sheet revisions, the second part,
Mhm.
so there's certain, and you can help me with this, but there's certain specs that are within the detail sheet that would have to change with a facade change, and they're very, very minor. I just estimated $1,500, and that's probably overestimating it, but wrapping around the side of things, that some of the details that are in the back that aren't changing, the one facade sheet would have to be changed as well. Probably did a poor job explaining that.
No, you
but-
did a great job. Let's pick one item, the overhangs. With a stone veneer, the overhang looks different because the stone takes up space. With a siding veneer, whether it's the original or the one we're talking about, it really doesn't change. So if we all decide just go with the white one, there'll be fewer detail changes.
So I would just.
You know where I'm
I
at.
think so, but.
If y'all are all in agreement with the white one, it makes it so much easier, especially on the bid assessment tool, because we're not looking at different
And
alternates.
just to confirm, it's the white one that looks kind of like is the one that's on Marvin,
Yes.
Yeah.
Wax on Marvin Road, right before the school on the left, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to say yep so loud, sorry.
Is
So,
everybody, am
I'm
I
just
hearing
gonna say,
everybody's?
Nick, where are you? Do you still want to see the other stone
I
option?
still like, let's see, it's not an option.
Okay.
At the end of the day, it's $1,500, right?
It is, yeah, potentially.
And the stone, it gives you all more time to think. I told you all, I'll go with the majority on this one. I'm pretty indifferent.
You like the white one.
Yeah.
I'm like, that, you're not indifferent, you like the
I
white
like the
one.
white one, yeah, I like the white one,
You
but
just paid to have that done at your house, you better like it.
I want to pick my battles.
So-
Yeah, I did it in my house, so I have it already.
So it's
You're good.
Yeah.
redundant.
I just wanted to double check because I thought if it could quickly simplify it, but it doesn't sound like.
So let's just hypothetically say in
We'll
the
leave
end,
it.
in
Okay.
the end, we either go with the white or the stone, not the first one. Then going back to his scenario, we're gonna have to change certain detail sheets. It's very minor, so that'll be another $1,500 at the back end.
So now we're at 3,000.
Yeah, and I'm probably overestimating that second 1,500. It's probably not going to be that much.
And to confirm, the original one was the barn-looking one?
Correct.
Okay, so everyone agrees that's
Yeah,
out.
we're not with that.
Okay, so that's out. So it's really about the stone
Yeah.
and the white building.
So, okay, so if y'all are okay, or is everyone okay with the 1,500 on the front end and the back end?
I mean, that's fine, but I don't think we have a choice.
So then the next, there's a couple of other things that are pretty big, and this next one is the bidding services. I've just thrown out $2,000 to $5,000 here. This is really for him to hold our hands through the RFP process. It's not a requirement. Does it make me feel a lot better about it? Yes, it does, because none of us are experts in the RFP process from a public entity standpoint. So this is him working through the entire RFP creation. Obviously, we would do that from a staff standpoint, just to save time and let him review it, to make sure everything looks good, make sure there's nothing we forgot.
Does this include him reviewing the bid?
It does,
Okay.
yes.
Bids,
Yes.
hopefully.
What we would do, he would be there for the pre-bid meeting. It would also include him being there at the bid opening. And then what we would do as staff is go in and plug what the bid tabulation sheet, he would go through and make sure, double check it to make sure we've done everything like we're supposed to, and help us with that tool that we've established. But basically it is holding our hand through this process.
Okay.
And that's, so I think, that's an estimated cost of what it would
Yes, that's just
cost
what I
total?
estimated.
Okay.
It's $95 an hour. It's probably gonna be on the lower end of this, but I don't wanna tell you it's gonna be $1,500 and it ends up being more if something comes up. When we talk about all these different alternates, it does add a level of complexity because we've got to, go in and add all these things in. So it does complicate things. It's not impossible, but just being honest about it. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I'm just looking at the lower numbers on 5 and 6. What are those?
So, and then I want to mention too, that there are some things that are in the current contract to help with like the pre-bid opening, that I will still have that argument with him and try to knock that down and say it's a part of the original contract, but he's got some valid arguments that I think you'll see. But again, I will try to fight tooth and nail for what we've already paid for, so we can try to get that covered. Number 4 is any other services that if we have any other meetings moving forward, just make sure we're familiar with that fee schedule, which I don't really anticipate any more schedules, any meetings.
Oh, you mean with them?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I see.
They're gonna start charging us for those. So that's the attached rate schedule is what we would be looking at if we had meetings with them. I don't really anticipate a whole bunch of need with those type of things, other than,
Interior designer.
yeah, which is gonna be very minimal.
That's number 4 on here? Is that corresponding to here, that number 4?
No,
Oh, okay.
well, I'm sorry. It's, the way his thing came out, yes, it is number 4 on his as well.
Is that this?
Yeah. Any questions on that?
Nope.
Number 5, say again?
Try not to spend it.
Yeah. Number 5 is contract administration. There is a level of contract administration in the current agreement. If you look at that really long sheet that I passed out, this is what we spent to date than what was originally approved in the capital project budget. If you look at the balance left, it's $6,400. That is right at the amount that we have budgeted at the top for contract administration, if you see the $6,000 slated for that. So roughly, we had already anticipated spending $6,000. It's already in our contract. It's there. That's what that will encompass. That includes 2 visits. I've passed out the contract so y'all can see what's included in that.
Is that this one, the blue?
Yeah.
Spec guy?
Towards the bottom,
Wait.
right there.
Oh.
So it's the very bottom paragraph. The big one at the very end is called a spec manual. This is what I wanted to talk to you about today that we didn't have time to talk about.
Sorry, what was that last?
Spec manual.
Oh, the spec manual.
Where's
6 on
It's
this
the
one.
last one, number 6.
Is everybody okay with everything up to spec manual? Are y'all okay with all that?
I don't think we have a choice.
Quick question,
What she
then.
said.
Hang in
What
there.
you were saying before, you know how we were just saying that we're at the 6,000, we're at this, the extra 6,000 that we're spending now is essentially just over and above what we've already put towards the planning and,
No, it appears to be included in here
It's
because we
it's
still
slated
have
in there.
6,400 left over in here.
So when I give you that number, 864, whatever, that number should already, that should have encumbered that amount. Does that make sense?
yes.
I can confirm that with Chris tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, good.
If it doesn't, are you still okay with it though? Okay.
Yeah, just want to be sure I grasped it.
I think that it should be encumbered already. So anyways, so you're good up to that point? Everybody's okay? So if you look at this sheet that I passed out that says specguy.com, when I met with the architect a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that he thought that we needed a spec manual for each specification, the plumbing, the electrical. He brings out this book that's about this thick for just electric. We have, if you look at our plans, we have specifications that are actually very detailed in the back of our plans.
Okay, so they are there, right? They confirmed that?
They are, yes.
Because it seemed to me they were.
I told John Urban that I wasn't so sure we couldn't just use the specs that are actually listed in our plans already. He feels like we really need to have a special specifications manual for each one, which is where that quote is. I called John Fuller, who was the architect for Wesley Chapel. He agrees with John Urban. However, he does say that some people do, like this is lighting right here. This is a level of detail that we have just for lighting.
Right.
He says that he's seen places use this level of detail here. So you could do it either way, but to be 100% comfortable with it, he would recommend a manual, but it's not an absolute requirement. So as long as you can help with the process of making sure we review all this and everyone's okay with that, then I don't think we actually have, we absolutely have to.
$6,500. So
Wow.
it's basically, it's the same information because it's our own specs. It's just not put in a manual for them
Yes.
to refer to.
So what I did with John, and we don't have to decide this right now. I can do some more research. I literally just.
I'm just trying to think of what does it protect us?
This
So
level
what's
of
the
detail
65?
is already very thorough. I mean, think of it in terms, we've each built a fairly new house in our lifetime. And think back to any spec sheet you got, there's probably one page of that. This is broken out by trade to the point of what door handle do you use, what hinge for that door do you use. It was the same at the park, light fixtures, everything's called out.
But John Urban knows that because he created it, but he's still saying that there's a need for a spec manual.
John Urban admittedly said he wasn't 100% sure.
There,
Okay.
if I were him, I would encourage you to do as much as you could to
Cover your ass.
butts.
Yeah.
And his, right? But it doesn't mean we have to. Because when you have a chance, if you're playing with the plans, just look at some of these, I can't even read them, but some of
Yeah.
these schedules get pretty darn detailed.
They're very detailed.
Where it's, and it's probably in here somewhere on the notes, but there are opportunities for using something comparable. So if we weren't comfortable with that word for a specific item, we need to take that out. They have to supply X. But other than that, even the manual's gonna have that clause usually. If you can't get that hinge, you can use something comparable, then we have to approve it.
So roughly you're talking about maybe a change order if it's a bit large enough item.
Yeah, that's where you, and that's where you do the math. It's 6,500 for this thick manual, or a guy comes to you and says he's gonna need an extra $50, $100, $200 for.
Well, let's put it this way, when we have construction manuals, like for modern gardens, all that fine print, I would zoom in, take snapshots and turn it into PDFs and make my own booklet, just so that I could go through the plans and make sure that
the provisions for the right trees, or so many distance from the parking island, so on and so forth. My point being that once you blow all that stuff up, it's more than, I mean, that would more than fill a binder's worth. And if we really need to, I can't see why we couldn't just ask for those particulars to be pulled out. Like, I don't know why we would need to pay another $6,500 for that.
So when I was talking to John Fuller, I told him what this guy had charged. He said that was pretty high in his opinion. He said that if it was a couple of $1,000s, he would recommend it. Being $6,000, he wasn't sure. He said, same thing you did. Yes, do it to cover your butt because you only need contracts when you need them. So I told him to give me an example of.
Oh, that's what this is?
No, I didn't give it to you. This is just a table of contents. So, I mean, it's a 4-page table of contents of one of them, and you can look through it and see what you think. But I called Albemarle and asked them. They just recently did a building. They didn't do a spec manual.
Okay.
I called Wesley Chapel. They did a spec manual. So it's really up in the air as to if we want to do it or not.
Do you mind if I ask you, Robert, doesn't a general contractor though, wouldn't they, aside from looking at the plans, would they generally have spec manuals for all the other manufacturing materials that they use, how to install, say, I don't know, a particular brand of board and batten or something like that? How did it?
If the architect calls out, here I see steel windows and this is just an index, so it doesn't have a long number. But if an architect calls out a Geldwin series, whatever,
Right.
that window has its own installation instructions. Code enforcement insists that despite what the book says, they want you to follow manufacturer installation instructions on most products, and they'll check it. So there's already that layer of protection.
Okay.
And I would imagine in the plans it does say installation by manufacturer specification on certain items.
Well, and so that was in the timeline, I've actually added another bullet point that we need to get someone to, because nowhere in any of our contracts is the actual creation of the contract in, as far as when we select a vendor who's going to create that contract. So I've added this in here. I would assume that you would do that. Are you familiar with doing the contracts with?
I typically review them. I don't
Okay.
create them.
So that's another layer that we need to add to the architect to
Is that
cover.
what he would do?
Yes, but that's not included in any of those amounts.
You think Wesley Chapel would let you see their contract?
They would,
Public record, right?
for sure, yeah.
In PDF format?
We can try to model it and copy it.
Oh, we can convert it from PDF to Word.
I guarantee you, it's thorough. There's something that may have changed in the last few years, but
We'll ask for that, but that is something that we need to address at some point, because that's not written anywhere. in any
Right, I mean,
contracts.
still would have to be, customized with all the same materials. Bottom line then, does that mean that we have to do that in-house? That contract has to be written?
No, the contractor, whoever's the vendor.
They'll provide.
They
the
provide the
con-
contract,
okay.
yes.
If
Yeah,
you
no,
look
we
at-
don't know. That would be a nightmare. No.
If you look at the email the email that I passed down around from John Urban, the second page, my number 4 was the question to him about the contract. And so that's where he said that the town would need to draft and administer their own contract. Your attorney would need to be involved in the process. So what we could do is get a copy of.
They're all going to be AIA contracts. I've read so many of those, and I can tell you what I'm going to strike right now
Okay.
without ever seeing them. They
Okay.
always strike the same things, and they always comply,
Okay.
typically.
So then we'll get a copy from Wesley Chapel, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Okay.
Are y'all in agreement that we aren't going to go through with the spec manual? Or is that what I'm hearing?
I mean, I'm a yes
To do it?
You do
to
want
not do it.
or to not do it?
Indifferent?
I'll trust your judgment, Robert. If that's as detailed enough,
It's pretty darn detailed.
then I'm fine with
So
saving.
what's the
$69.
downside if we don't do it? Like what, if something
It's
happens.
more of a CYA thing.
Yeah.
You get into like an argument like, well, you should have used this fixture on this and you chose to go this route. And it's like, but that seems to be pretty detailed in there about
So
what,
we'll try
it's
to
an
get the
example.
contract to cover certain things or what that covers us.
you know, I mean, it could be something like the life expectancy
Yeah,
of the
no.
roof.
Yeah. no, I
And
think
they
I got
used a
that.
lower grade that's only a 20-year roof, or we wanted, a spec was a 30-year, but it says it in there, it's gotta be a 30-year roof. I mean, I assume,
Ideally, and I can help with this, is whatever's on there is, whatever selections are in the blueprints are current, which this should be. But even more so, very specific, instead of use your roof example, so a 30-year roof, we pick a manufacturer and a color in advance. And that's it, that's what you're bidding. I keep using the word comparable, because yeah, we could change our minds and they still use GAF shingles, but it's a different color. It doesn't change the cost. But the more that's in there, the better. But a spec book, I honestly think you're gonna we'll end up with more bidders without handing them a 2-inch thick book. You know, there could be people that are just scared off by it, and then we end up with bids in excess of $1.5 million.
because their risk is probably they don't bid it right, because they miss it in the specs that if they're given a spec to look at it and they don't bid it the right way to what our specs are, then that's on them and not on us.
Yeah,
That's right.
the park bathrooms, you know, I bid that last day, and I was way off on my price, but I still took the responsibility when I missed a couple things. I missed footings. I never would have thought there'd be a detail for a 3-foot deep on a park bathroom, but there was, and I installed it, and I ate it. But that's how it goes. Any good contractor will do that.
That's it. So if y'all want to review the timeline, if y'all have any questions, you can email me. But that's it. If I have a consensus that y'all are all in agreement with everything that's on that sheet except for the spec, then I'm going to move forward with a contract amendment to include all of those things as listed.
What was the total? You said 860? Well,
8, 6. Oh, no, I just said that out loud. The total that we have in the capital plan right now is 864.
where is this? I missed the meeting, but I was hearing this 1.5 number going around.
Yeah, and that's just a number that I've estimated based on square footage cost. And I've tried to make it clear that it could be less, could be more. I have no idea until we get RFPs.
In our meeting with John Urban, I said, you know, what we were trying to get approximate, and he said my 1.5 was probably closer to
But I
what,
thought he said 225 a square foot, was it, or 200 a square foot? What was it?
He said that whatever the number was for Wesley Chapel, because I wrote it down, I memorized it to be sure. Whatever the number was per square foot for Wesley Chapel was probably about right and still relevant. So that's when we had to figure out from that point, well, how much did Wesley Chapel spend? And then what did it include? And so that was that report that broke it down to, it ended up being in and around 125, 123, 125 a square foot.
Wesley Chapel, I think, was 216, right?
It was even less. Yeah, we were.
that didn't include furniture though.
So that's,
But we have
Yeah.
a separate budget for furniture.
Well, Wesley Chapel's oh gosh, now I'm testing my memory. Whatever I put in that report included furnishing, included landscaping, it did include furniture, office,
So
office.
I thought it was like
Yes.
1.3, 1.4 back then, and I was told it did not include that, and that's directly
that's-
from the clerk there.
That's when I went through the meeting minutes to be sure that that the number that I was reading included those same items that were being summarized in your town hall meeting or whatever it was. And that's when I was deduced that it included actually a lot more than I thought we had included. I don't think we've got landscape. Do we have landscaping included in our
That's the,
Fair
That's
price?
part of the 1.5,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, okay. It was landscape, I'm not going off, I can pull it
How
up.
many square feet is
I
it,
got it
is our,
right here.
is our
Yeah,
plans?
okay.
We're 4,000
4,000?
times
you had 222, but it's 216.
216 is
okay.
864, so I'm not getting a 1.5.
It was 1.4 for
When I
them.
heard that,
1.4, okay. And you know what it was, I think, Joe, is that we were, at that point though, we had underestimated the square footage of Wesley Chapel in that meeting, and then come to find out that it was actually larger than what John Urban had thought. And so, of course, when you do the math, it turns out there was actually less per square foot.
The notes I have say no, it says no furniture, but I mean, that's.
That's
just
what I had too, because I talked to them directly.
And the one that I wrote up for you?
Well, not the one you wrote up.
Oh, okay.
The notes that I had
Okay.
from
are we
Chris's
not moving
conversation.
over furniture we already own?
We can.
I need that to know.
My desk is falling apart.
Stallings is building a new town hall right now. Like, they just tore down the old Public Works building, so, I mean, they're another good resource for all of this. I think theirs is 2.2, but they're doing a building and a show.
Sorry.
Christina and I talked to ESP, and we try to save some money, but that, there's still
Yeah,
conversations to be had.
he's emailed me back and.
We don't have to go through that tonight.
Yeah, we're still working on maybe reducing some of the civil site disturbance so that we can maybe reduce some of the grading and all that's necessary, which is gonna be a large portion because we have 2 BMPs. So if we can basically decrease the impervious area, then hopefully we can decrease the need for a BMP, which maybe will reduce that plan.
You guys are
We're still working on it,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
We're trying to get rid of the extra detention pond. Half the sites are already cleared, but when the original math was done, they assumed it wasn't.
So then I'll move forward with those names and we will get started.
Do you need anything from us? Do we have to approve anything?
I mean, if y'all just want to make a motion based on those items that I've got listed out for
For
the
John.
cleaner, I can tell you what to do. Let's see.
This one here?
Yes, that, Mary, you just want to know. You just want to make a motion based on
Sure.
those.
Okay, so I'll motion that we approve the activities and expenditures listed on the sheet entitled Urban Items for Decisions and Contract Amendment as presented.
Minus the specs.
What's that?
Minus the
Oh,
numbers.
minus the specification sheets. So as amended. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Unanimous. Next up, we have council comments.
Review of action items.
Action items. Oh, review of action items.
Okay.
I get you. All this time.
Huh?
All this time and I forgot it.
That's okay, you can forgive me.
I'm not going to.
Let's see, send the address to the COG office to the mayor and Councilwoman Scoot. Christina will ask Waxaw about providing police services to Marvin, I guess. And ask Melanie to write a resolution to appeal to the insurance regarding paying legal fees. That may not be exactly correct, but that was the gist, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have anything to add to that? All right. Council comments. Mary, you want to go?
Just thank you for being patient with me with regard to the queries I had. I appreciate y'all letting me kind of get that out and work through that in my head. And that's it. Thanks for staff for all the work again. And my apologies for not being able to make that retreat. That was really difficult. I was trying my best, and I don't think I've had a heat fever that high for that long in years. So I appreciate you all having that retreat and forgiving my absence. And that's everything.
Robert?
Just thank you, Barbie and Christina, for a good meeting and getting all this town hall stuff put together. You know, we make it, I'm as guilty as anyone of making it sound like it should be a very simple process. But you can tell by the, everything they're having to do that it's not. So appreciate your efforts on that. That's all I have.
Kim?
I just want to thank staff for a good retreat. I appreciate the delicious food and all the prep work that you guys did. So thank you very much. And excited to have Rohit as our new planner. It's exciting. So welcome to him.
Same thing, thanks staff for, yeah, the retreat was well put together, and wish we could have got more accomplished, but it was good, and for all the work you've been doing on this, always getting these meetings so we can move forward and stay on track a little bit. And thank you for Melanie for all she's done and helping us with our lawsuit stuff and keeping us on that. It was a good meeting, and keep moving forward.
Thank you, Nick. Obviously, I will piggyback on that and thank staff, especially for that damn good food you guys made. I mean, I want recipes.
That was so good.
I want recipes for the
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts
noodle
and the
casserole.
thing, and I know that is not on my diet plan, but I enjoyed it, and it was one day I could take liberty of that. So, but thank you again for all the hard work and putting this together. Welcome, Rohit. Thank you for taking him under your wing, and hopefully we get him off and running very soon. The retreat was productive, I thought. We just, things that we wish we could have had all of you on board, but we did get through a lot on that, so appreciate the time that was spent on that day. I know some were out sick, so. One thing I'd like to mention, I'm getting a lot of calls about meetings that are canceled. And people are they're blaming me. They're saying or why do we keep canceling meetings? So a couple of things to that. I would like to, and we can maybe discuss maybe a rule for this, but we need quorum checks. We need everyone to respond. When I was here earlier today, I believe only 2 of us responded to the quorum check. I think it's imperative that, because it's only fair to the community too. If you're not going to be able to make a meeting and we can't call for a meeting, then we need to get that notice out. And I think you've been doing it at least 4 or 5 hours before an actual meeting. So if I could ask you all to please try and to respond to Barbie when she asked that, it just helps. But again, I'm getting asked, why do we keep canceling meetings? And it's, I know there's good reasons for them, but then there's no documentation for it either of who's in, who's not. Real quick, I would like to add discussion for rules of minutes. So when we look at the work session, some sort of how we do our minutes. I think we thought we had it, and then it became all that, and as now we're reviewing it and then asking them to review it, the hours and hours that it is spending, I think if we can just get back to simple, high level, and to your point, Robert, I think we agreed that if somebody wants verbatim for a specific section, have at it, and get it done yourself, present it to this board, and we'll review it, hopefully in time. We have a chance to make sure everything's right, and we approve it. Other than that, it really should be high level. At the end of the day, everybody has the audio to go back to actually see what was actually said. But it's, as you and I know, it was very frustrating to do verbatim. It took us 3 hours to do the last one. So, but with that, I'm trying to think. I did welcome Rohit, I think, didn't I? Okay. I think that's it. It was good to see the officers out there on a rainy day today
Yes, it
too.
was.
So
Yes, it was.
I don't know if they were expecting it, but with that, I will ask to move into closed session and pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A3 to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorney and the public body of the lawsuit, Scoot versus the Village of Marvin, 18 CVS 1853. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
Good night.
passes. Good night.